Am I the a-hole for refusing to be excited for my sister about her pregnancy when she has never met my children? My sister, 29, and I have always had a troubled relationship and have never seen eye to eye. However, we do love each other and would hang out and get along as best as we could. The problems all started when I got married to my husband, 5 years ago, and had 2 children shortly after. Throughout my pregnancy, my sister didn't bother to check on me and completely took herself out of my life. I just assumed she was jealous or had some type of issue with me being pregnant. I was not prepared for what would happen after my first son, 3, was born. She asked me for a picture of him shortly after he was born, when we had not spoken the whole time I had been pregnant. I thought that maybe this was a turning point for us and we could finally get along. I was very wrong. She has never met either of my sons. I have offered to bring them to see her numerous times, but there was always an excuse. She never asked me how they were doing or showed any interest in them. My sister has even boasted about other kids that are her friends' children, but seems to hate her own nephews. I am so confused. The problem has now got even more complicated now that she has announced she is pregnant. I'm happy for her, but I am still hurt with how she has treated my children and how she treated me during my pregnancy. My mum, 65, says I'm being selfish and to just let it go and be excited for her, but I'm finding it difficult. I am super excited for her to be a mum, but I can't just forget how she treated me. I want to have a relationship with my niece or nephew, but I also don't know how possible that would be until I'm older. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. As people have been asking, I was 23 when I had my first baby, and my mum thought I was too young and refused to be supportive through my pregnancy, and did it again with my second. A little bit more context. I am a people pleaser. I have always just apologized and let things slide in the past, even if they really hurt me. This time, I cannot ignore it. Small update. I've spoken to my mum and I've set a boundary with her that she needs to stop pushing me to talk to my sister. I have asked that she apologized for how she treated me during my pregnancy and after, and if she can do that, then we can work on our relationship. My sister is continuing to contact me, asking me to plan a baby shower, and I have, as of now, not responded. The dispatcher stated that though nothing has happened, I am unable to contact my daughter. Now for some comments. Have you asked her why she is acting like that towards your children? What does your husband say about it? O.P. replied, yes, I have asked her numerous times, but she just denies she's doing it. My husband says that I should go low contact with her and treat her how she treated me. Commenter, I agree with your husband. Your sis knows and has always known what she's doing, so return the same energy to her. Last comment. Your husband is right. Put in the same energy as her. Stop initiating calls, put her on mute, if it even matters. Those asking you to placate your sister are the a-hole. You don't need to be a people pleaser or keep the peace. Be indifferent. That's nice. Anyway, fine weather we've been having. It may change your relationship with your sister's supporters, but do you really want to continue to be a doormat to your golden child sister? Not the a-hole.
Am I the idiot for going off on my pregnant sister-in-law after repeatedly being disrespected and ignored by her? My boyfriend, male 30, and I, female 25, had just gotten married in May of this year after being together for 5 years. For context, my now husband's family has an interesting history and dynamic. I'd describe them as very multicultural and diverse. My FVIL is Black Arab mixed, and my MILE is White Persian mixed. As a result, Their extended families are spread around the world. My husband has 3 more siblings, an elder brother and 2 younger brothers. I am not sure if this is important, but I am Asian. So my husband was studying in my home country, which is how we met. He has also lived and worked in my country for the past 4 years. It's safe to say he's made his permanent home here. Because of the dynamics of his family, I rarely get to meet them because they all live in different countries. During our 5-year relationship, I barely met his parents 3 times and never met his older brother and his wife. On the other hand, I see his younger brothers frequently because they are currently studying in my native country, and we are really close. Fast forward to May of this year when my now husband and I chose to get married in my home country. All of his family flew here to attend the wedding, and I met my husband's older brother and his wife for the first time. The first awkward incident with my SIL occurred when I went to the airport with my husband to pick her and my BIL up a few days before our wedding. When we first met, I extended my hand for a handshake, expecting a full, strong handshake to my SIL, and she literally just used the tip of her fingers to touch my hands. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like when you don't really want to touch someone's hand during a handshake. Following that, she walked right past me and hugged my husband. On the other hand, my BIL is really welcoming and thrilled to finally meet me. He hugged me and said, "It's great to finally meet you." His warmth made me forget about my SIL's rudeness, and we moved on. In the days leading up to the wedding, my SIL makes subtle remarks about the wedding, criticizing every element we choose from the flowers to my wedding dress. For everyone's information, I come from a financially secure family that owns a business. My parents supported half of the wedding costs while the other half was covered by myself and my husband. My husband is a doctor, and I work as an engineer. One thing that frustrates me is how my SIL keeps telling me how fortunate I am to have a wealthy family to mooch off from, and I'm sure to throw a lot of tantrums at my parents given how enormous and luxurious the wedding is. But it's always so subtle that it wouldn't start a fight, but enough to make me uncomfortable. For background, my BIL and SIL are also both financially well off. My husband's family was similarly financially comfortable to begin with. My BIL is an accountant and my SIL occupies a management position in a company, management position in a company. She is also a lifestyle influencer with quite a large following on Instagram. And they live in Dubai. You know how expensive the city is. Fast forward to September of this year, my husband and I received an invitation from my BIL and SIL for a gender reveal party and baby shower in October, which occurred a few days ago. We were ecstatic and decided to book our flights to Dubai immediately after receiving the invitation. For your information, there will be 2 separate events: a gender reveal party for BIL, SIL, and their respective families' acquaintances, and a baby shower for my SIL and her female family members and acquaintances the following day. I was invited to both parties, and I was supposed to attend the baby shower without my husband, which I believe was a nice opportunity to bond with my SIL. But then, my SILL contacted my husband one day before the gender reveal party and informed him that I was not invited to the baby shower. The reason is that she doesn't want me to draw attention away from her during the event. My husband and I were plainly perplexed as to how and why would I be diverting attention away from her. And her reason is that no one knows or has ever met me. So they will ask, and she does not want to spend time explaining who I am to her guests. Because my husband and I do not want to cause unnecessary trauma, we just agreed that I will only attend the gender reveal party with him. On the day of the gender reveal party, I went with my husband and my SIL did not speak with me at all or even recognize my presence. I tried to make small chats to congratulate her, but she just blew me off each time. My BIL, on the other hand, is as friendly as ever, thankfully. When the party appeared to be coming to an end, I went out to the car to get the gift I had purchased, apparently for the baby shower. But because I would not be attending the baby shower the next day, I decided to give it to her that day. During that time, the guests began to leave, and when I handed her the gift, she screamed at me loudly. The first thing she said was, "Don't you have manners?" I was clearly taken aback and bewildered. She then accused me of attempting to assert dominance by flaunting my wealth and rubbing it in her face as well as looking down at her. For those who are curious about the present I bought, I purchased a baby blanket and sleeping bag from Dyer, and the present is in the Dior shopping bag. I felt humiliated after being screamed at, and my blood was boiling at the time. I yelled back in rage, asking her what I did wrong to deserve to be treated so disrespectfully by her. I said that her insecurities were not my responsibility, and that if she despised me that much, she should not have invited me in the first place. She appears stunned by my words and begins crying. Both my husband and BIL rush towards us to calm us down. My husband suggested that we leave as well as some guests had already begun to leave. It happened 3 days ago, and since then, everything has been quiet. Nobody said anything, and now I feel horrible for yelling at a pregnant woman. Top comments. Commenter 1. Let me tell you something. People will mess with you till it stops being fun for them. You made it stop being fun for her. You let her know the gloves are off, and if she swings at you, you will swing right back, no matter where, no matter who's there. You handled it perfectly. She knows going forward her disrespect will be met with the same and louder. It's the only way to make her act civilly. That's all you can enforce at this point. Do not apologize. Instead, make it clear there is plenty more where that came from if you are treated to any more of her nonsense. If the BIL says anything to you, say, you will continue to meet her energy. That's all you say. And repeat it as many times as is necessary to him and any other family that asks. Commenter 2, not the idiot. She's clearly a miserable person, and it has nothing to do with you. She will always be like this because it's who she is. Just avoid and ignore her as much as possible. Update. Almost 1 month later. It had been a month since my last post, and now I have the opportunity to provide an update finally. First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone who commented and supported me in my previous post, and I apologize for not being able to respond to each and every one of you. By the way, my husband and I have returned safely to our home. After a few days of silence, following what happened at the gender reveal party, I eventually sat down with my husband to discuss it. We had an honest discussion in which I expressed how mean my SIL has been to me, and my husband ended up apologizing for not standing up for me while subconsciously knowing how my SIL has treated me. As I mentioned in my previous post, my husband comes from a household without a girl sibling, and for the past 12 years, SIL has been like a sister to him, leaving him torn between speaking out against her and sticking up for me. He said he didn't expect things to go so bad because we live in separate countries and won't see each other much. We resolved our conversation with him, promising to have my back if something like this happened again. In the same week, my husband and I had the opportunity to speak with my BIL through video call. SEIL was not present. I know not everyone would agree with my apology, but I did apologize to BIL for causing a scene by yelling at their gender reveal party. To my surprise, BIL, it was fine, and he remarked she had it coming. Following that, BIL apologized to me on behalf of SIL, as well as for turning a blind eye to what had been going on between me and SIL. We discussed what might be the source of SIL's hatred for me, and to my surprise, it appears to be tied to the fact that SIL believes I am taking over the position of daughter-in-law in the family from her. She has been the only SIL for my husband's brothers, and she believes I am taking over the role. As I previously stated, my husband's younger brothers have been studying in my home country since early this year, and we have had many opportunities to spend time together. According to BILCI, believes the brothers have been pulling away from her and becoming closer to me. For information, the brothers are 22 and 16 years old. Adding to the unpredictable pregnant hormones, she believes I'm buying the brothers' love by spoiling them with materialistic items. Brother-in-law stated that she had mentioned her concern to him several times previously, but he did not expect her to take it seriously and always dismissed it. He apologized again and stated that he will discuss it with SIL after her feelings have been resolved. According to BIL, SIL has been acting as if nothing has happened, so he is also unsure when it is appropriate to bring the issue to the table. We ended the video chat on a positive note, and I promised BIL that I would speak with the brothers and perhaps encourage them to contact SIL to see how she is doing so she does not feel left out. And as for SIL, I haven't spoken to her yet, and to be honest, I'm not sure I ever will. My husband and I have decided to move on from this situation and focus on our own lives. I believe that is all the updates so far, and to be honest, I could use some suggestions on how to fix my relationship with my SIL. Should I reach out to her or something? Top comments commenter 1. Honestly, sounds like you've done enough. You apologized, talked it out with BIL, and even considered SIL's feelings. If she wants to fix things, she'll reach out. Focus on your peace for now. Commenter 2, not the idiot for sure. Your SIL must understand that pregnancy is not an excuse to be rude and unkind to others. Continue advocating for yourself. Commenter 3, why would you want to fix the relationship? You did nothing wrong. Your SIL is the one who needs to be apologizing. Honestly, her attachment to the younger siblings is weird to me. She should be encouraging them to have a relationship with you because you and your husband are there and can be there for them if they ever need help. I feel like her saying she was jealous of the younger brothers is really just her trying to get out of taking accountability, which you are helping her with. Why? Why would you be apologizing? It just doesn't make sense to me. She ruined her own party. She has been the one being cruel for a long time. She has been the one that has the issues. Of course she isn't going to change or apologize when all of you keep taking the accountability away from her and blaming yourself. My 35 male, mother's 58 female, new fiance wants me to call him dad. He's 24. How do I navigate this? Please buckle in because this is all so weird. I'm a 35-year-old man, and for some backstory, my dad died when I was 19, leaving my mom with me and my 2 siblings. I'm the oldest. It took some time, but eventually my mom started dating again. We don't live together per se, but our houses back onto each other and have a gate, so it's pretty common for her to offer to do my laundry or me just go over for dinner or go look after our dog, that kind of stuff. Plus, me and my siblings go over there for dinner every other Friday night or so. A bit after she started, the men she's been dating have been getting younger and younger, and I've never had a problem with them. She's been very open to me and my siblings that she wants to get married again, and we've always been supportive. At least after the initial shocks, lol. The latest guy is by far the most serious, and they've been dating since around last June. He proposed at the start of autumn, and they want to get married next summer. Again, me and my siblings are fine with this because it's her life, and we trust him. He's a nice guy, and they clearly love each other. But anyway, so long and short is, this weekend, her fiancé, let's call him Phil, calls me and asks me if I could come over. I say, yeah, sure, I'll be over after work, and I assumed he just needed help with some DIY stuff they're doing. When I get over there, he calls me sport and says, we need to talk. I should mention this is something he does to me and my little brother, calling us things like kid, sport, scout, little buddy, or my personal favorite, calling us red and blue, seemingly out of nowhere. My brother is 30, by the way. He tried it with my little sister, 28, too, once and called her princess once, but he stopped when she just stared at him. The thing with Phil is that he reminds me a lot of Charlie Day's character in Horrible Bosses, in that his sole ambition has always been to meet a girl, get married, and have a family. When he told me and my brother this, my brother made some joke about how maybe our mom's going to come short on the last part, and he got very upset, but they made up after. Anyway, so I go round and I ask if my mom's around. He says no, it's just him, and that we really need to talk man to man. I say sure, and he starts talking about how he's always wanted to be a father, etc., and raise a son to call his own, and then he drops this bombshell by saying, now I know I can never replace your father, the man who made you, but it would mean the world to me if you could call me dad. I'll admit it, I snickered a little, and then I knew he was serious because he looked like he was about to cry. And he didn't drop it either. I asked if he really meant it, and he got really emotional and started talking about what it means to be a man, and how his purpose is to have and provide for a family, and he wants me and my siblings to be part of that family. Like he reiterated, he'll never replace my father. And this did rub me the wrong way a bit. But he's ready to step up and be my dad and provide for and protect me and my siblings. And I just sat there thinking, dude, I'm a decade older than you and live in a separate house. I don't need providing for, and even if I did, I don't think a guy a third of my age who works part-time at the hardware store and is into collecting manga is the man to do it. No offense. If you are into that lol, I don't know, I was a bit taken aback. I was in shock, so just said, okay. And he gets emotional again, but in a happy way, talking about how he wants to go camping or go to a baseball game. I don't even like baseball game. I don't even like baseball Leo. And how he joined the Lions this year, and how he wants to bring me into it, too, as his bot, which just feels so surreal. Even more so, as I'm a Shriner. So all this talk of service and charity isn't the brag he thinks it is. Because again, I'm 10 years older than this guy. Well, I ended it by just saying, this has gotten a bit too weird, and I was going home. He got very upset, and I left. Call my brother. And he agreed. It sounds weird as heck. Later, my mom called me, and she wasn't disappointed, but admitted it's made him very upset and depressed. I told her that if he's embarrassed, he doesn't need to be. I get he's excited about the marriage, and we can just laugh this off as a funny story. She then said that wasn't what he was upset about. He, and she too a bit, is upset about the fact he poured his heart out and I rejected him. She said, yeah, it is a bit cookie, but this is how he proves to himself he's a man. And I guess I was a bit angry and said something like, first off, it's not my job to certify what's between his legs, and second, this doesn't prove he's a man, it just proves he's a nut job. I apologized immediately, but she said she didn't want to hear it and hung up. She called back 10 minutes later and we apologized, and she begged me to just go along with it until he has some kids to call his own. I won't go too much into the details here, but she sort of let slip they plan to try a treatment because she's not ready to give up on being a mom just yet. And while I have my own thoughts about whether or not that's a good idea, I'm not here to litigate on that. We finished up fine, and I reiterated I'd support her, and she agreed that it was definitely a stressful situation for me, but begged me to at least think about it. Which leads me here. I did think it over, and obviously I'm going to say no. I had a dad, and he died. Rest in peace, Dad. And that's the only dad I've ever needed, I've ever wanted, and I'll ever bestow that title on. I'm not asking if someone's unreasonable or what I should do, more so what I should say. This clearly means a lot to him for some reason, and I deeply love my mom, so I want to try and minimize the damage. Especially as we're still so involved in each other's lives and they live behind me. How can I make it clear to them, as painlessly as possible, that I think this is weird and borderline offensive? I really don't want to rip the Band-Aid off because I fear what it might do to the family. Edit. Showed my brother the post, and he laughed so hard he started coughing lol, then said we should call him Dr. Phil and each other Blue and Red. Swapped the nicknames he gave us around. Thoughts? Edit 2. As people were asking, he has no access to my mom's money or anything like that. She rents the house, and it came pre-furnished and otherwise has no real assets. She doesn't make a lot of money anyway, so there's no pecuniary motive we could think of. Some comments. Commenter, I wonder if he grew up without a dad. He's giving a weird 1950s energy to this whole thing that feels like he only knows about dads from seeing them on the telly. OP said, "Oh no, his dad's still alive. Both his parents are. I've met them. They definitely feel odd about the whole situation, but go along with it for his sake. Could you compromise and call him Pa or something?" OP replied, "The thing is, it became apparent it's more than just a name to him. He explicitly wants to do father-son activities with me and my brother with him as the dad, despite the fact we're both older than him." Commenter. If it's so important to his personal identity to find a girl, have kids with her, and raise them as their dad, it seems like marrying a 58-year-old woman with adult children significantly older than himself is a pretty ineffective way to achieve those life goals. If it's so important to him, he should find someone his own age and make that happen the normal way. It's not your responsibility to make your mom's boy toy feel like a man. You're closer to being his much older brother than his son. Weird. OEEP said, "Me and my siblings all think he has issues talking to girls his own age, and so it led to this." Commenter. I also get you are supporting your mom, but maybe question her having a kid at 58. Like, does she plan to be around for graduation? Marriages? Grandkids? It sounds like your mom is having some empty nest issues and is illogically trying to start over. If she got pregnant today, she would be 77 years old when her kid graduated. Considering she hasn't even started trying yet, that means she will be in her 80s when the kid graduates. That isn't realistic. Also, I have a 5 and 7-year-old and am only 38 years old and already feel tired all the time. I can't imagine what a 58-year-old would feel like. OP replied, "Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I don't actually see this ever going ahead. Hence why I'm happy to say, yeah, of course I'll support you because I guess I just can't imagine, push comes to shove, her actually getting the treatment greenlit. I did raise the age stuff and she just said people live a lot longer these days." Commenter. I don't know what his in-game is here. if it's a mental health problem or he's trying to create some legal precedent that he intends to exploit later. But it doesn't matter. You don't need to explain, defend, or justify this decision. OP replied, "The endgame. I genuinely think he wants to start a family or at least pretend he's the dad of one. Ever since we met him, it's all he'd ever really go on about, and how he'd ever really go on about, and how he needs to be a dad to become a man. Very early on, he asked me if I ever planned to have kids, and I said no. And he got quite taken aback, like a mixture of offense and confusion, and sort of seemed to imply I'm either gay. I am but or trans because I don't want to be a man then." Commenter: "Hope it works out in the long run, but I was laughing so hard by the end. Such a crazy situation. I think you should talk with your mom, maybe hang out with her fiancé, but as brothers, not some weird dad situation." OP replied, "I have offered this. But every time me and my brother do, he definitely tries to act like the man of the group or sets us up for more explicit father-son activities or just talks about how desperate he is to be a father. A personal favorite was a time when he got his phone out and started reading some pearls of wisdom he'd obviously found online. His probable low self-esteem. Yeah, I want to be gentle because I do think he has that warped self-esteem and a lot of other issues. Definitely not all with it. I do know his parents and they're totally normal, nice people who go along with this for his sake. He's mentioned internet friends and friends from AD&D group, but I've never met them. Me and my siblings have tried talking with his parents, but from the way they've come across, they really don't want to get involved any more than they have to, unfortunately. But thank you. Hopefully, the conclusion of this will be gentle. Update anyway. So I told both my siblings, and we agreed we'd collectively put our foot down with Phil at our next family dinner next week, especially after an incident where Phil referred to my brother as sport and asked if he wanted to go see a baseball game with him. Admittedly, I was a bit spurred on by what you all said and got involved, pinging him back with awe. "No tickets for me," Daddy and my brother responded with Daddy. "Wants me all to himself. Huh?" And Phil took a few minutes to respond before saying he was shocked, speechless, and disgusted. He then messaged me in private to say he was utterly appalled and that he'd never disrespect his own father the way you boys did. I kind of lost it at this point and said, "Right, that's because you're not my father, Phil. You're a 24-year-old man-child dating my mother. You have no right to my respect, especially not to the respect a father gets." I immediately said sorry, but then blocked his number and left the group chat. Apparently, he sent a similar thing to my brother, who responded with more daddy stuff, and Phil blocked him. Well, that aside, I don't think that family dinner is going ahead. After the original post blew up, it seems someone from his Lions Club found it and reported it to their chair or whatever, and Phil has either been expelled or resigned or in the process of one of the two. He has removed nearly all mentions of the Lions from his social media and no longer mentions being a member with his last post on it being some cryptic goodbye post where he kind of drones about what it means to be a man in the modern day and the duty of fatherhood bestowed on all men at birth. Really weird shit. My mom called me half in a panic, half in a rage after, about the stuff I'd been telling about him before breaking down and saying we need to meet, which we did, and got my brother to go over too. I know he has temporarily moved back in with his parents in the next town over, but from my understanding, they still want to go ahead with the wedding, but I think that's more so because they've already spent money on it. When she said she was determined to have more kids, plural, my brother did step up and asked if she really thought that was a good idea at her age. And I pointed out that assuming she had the baby next year and she lived to 80, they still wouldn't have finished college. She just stammered on about how people live longer these days before breaking down, crying, and admitting she's not ready to give up on mothering due to some deep-seated trauma and fears about the family breaking apart that I won't go into for her sake. When we reassured her that we weren't going anywhere, she calmed down, and we had a very good, honest conversation where she's agreed to drop the IVF stuff on the grounds that it'd be too expensive and unlikely to get greenlit. But she's still adamant it's scientifically possible, and she should be allowed to do it from an ethical standpoint because she has to win that argument, and has agreed to look into fostering instead. Me and my brother highly doubt anything will ever come of that, so we're not that worried anymore. The very good news is, she's also agreed to look into therapy psychiatric help to deal with her trauma, and we've helped get her in touch with a nice lady in town to unpack all this in a more healthy way. So at least one person is getting the help they need. I have no idea what's happened with Phil or what's going to happen with him, but I did make it clear to my mom that he is not my dad. He's not even my dad. He's not even my step. Dad, I'm not a kid, and he's never going to be either one outside of legal crockery. She relented pretty quickly. I think she's finally broken out of her shell at least. And we've agreed that if things go ahead, that's going to be a huge red line, though. I don't know if he'll want to be friends with me after all this layoff. Anyway, thanks for the help on the original post. Update next day, edit. Bit of an update as I can't respond to everybody, but I think the marriage is off. Phil has gone AWOL again and has had a huge argument with his family as they've demanded he call off the wedding and date people his own age. This apparently made him snap. Me and my mom have met his mom and older brother who said Phil is very insecure around girls his own age and has never been able to talk to them, hence his preference. This very deeply upset my mom, and after some begging from all of us, she has agreed to push the wedding back, though she wants to keep dating him. I have no idea where Phil is, though his brother assumes he's couch surfing with his DN friends who have been sending me and my brother some not so nice messages because clearly we're just jealous of the MILF hunter. If any of you socially inept EFs are reading this, I don't need to chase middle-aged folk because I can talk to boys my own age like a normal person. Peace.
My wife, 28 male, left me for 3 months and recently begged me to take her back. I said no and no. Everyone seems to be against me. I need some advice, strangers. Let me give some background information, as the situation will be hard to understand without it. 7 years ago, I got married to the girl of my dreams, Denise, fake name. We had been dating for 2 years before that, and it was like a dream come true that changed after our marriage. After our marriage, she constantly started feeling down and out of it, and eventually, I got her to go to a doctor who sent her to a therapist, and from there, we found out she had depression to do with things from her past that she was trying to forget. I decided to be as supportive as I could be. I took care of most of the housework despite working 40 hours a week and told her to just get herself in order, and if she needed to talk to me, I would be there for her. That was 6.5 years ago. Before she left, she was still depressed. She basically only lays in bed and complains. She does nothing. We had no intimacy, no sex, no cuddles, no going out. My entire day was filled with work and housework. Day in and day out, I worked my butt off, came home to a mess of a house and started cleaning up, starting dinner and so forth. At the end of the day, I was exhausted. And all I could expect was for Denise to unload more of her trouble on me and complain about herself. Me, and everything around her. I could not even hang out with my buddies to get away from it all, as she would relentlessly call me, saying she was scared and everything, so I also had no social life, not that I had time for it anyway. But despite it all, I pushed through, hoping that sooner or later she would break out of it and we could have a proper life together, as I loved her and, as they say, for better and worse. And this was quite clearly worse, possibly the worst it would ever be. 4 months ago, she got a new therapist, and 3 months ago that therapist suggested she needed time away from me as her depression started when we married. So I may be the cause of it. The moment she told me I was crushed, I started doubting myself, blaming myself, worrying. But beneath it all, this creeping sense of having done everything for her, having sacrificed years of my life as a cash cow and a servant for her to lay in bed. And this is my thanks? It is my fault now? But I rejected that feeling, trying to talk through it, but she decided to leave and stay with her mother, saying she needed time away from me, and that I may be the cause of her depression and so forth. Honestly, the entire argument is a blur in my head. I spent the next month when she moved out, calling her, her family, begging and humiliating myself just to get her back, apologizing for everything I may have done wrong. Honestly, I was close to ending it all, as I was so hopeless at that point. But that month passed, and as it passed, I couldn't help but feel relieved. I came home and it was quiet. I could indulge in my hobbies, which I had not done in years. The place was not a mess. Every time I came home, I could relax. And 2 months in, I even realized I could hang out with my buddies again, grabbing a beer, enjoying life. And slowly, I started to realize that I had been miserable this entire time. Slowly, that turned into more and more realizations. Before I realized I honestly did not love her anymore. I felt like my youth was wasting away. I could do much, much better than this. I felt like I was a caretaker of a handicapped old lady. Hell, I still looked good. And as I went out, I started once again gaining back my self-confidence. Women would flirt with me. I felt wanted, even though I never did flirt back. After all these realizations, I suddenly got a call from my wife saying she made a huge mistake. She was sobbing her eyes out, and how she was an idiot taking the therapist's words as fact, and how much she loved me. For a moment I wanted to say, yes, yes, please come back. But I couldn't. I just blurted it out and said to her she had left me and I was done with this relationship. I told her I would get divorce papers, and I told her I had wasted enough time as it was. And this final action of hers was the nail in the coffin. After that, I just dropped the phone, started crying for a bit, before turning in and feeling liberated. The issue now is that everyone in my family is telling me I am making a mistake. I should take her back. I owe it to her to try and make it work. Marriage is not always fun, etc. Thing is, I never had fun in this marriage. I can't remember the last time I had fun and wasn't miserable. We are both young and fit, and we never even go out. Hell, the last time we had sex is over a year ago. All I am to her is a frickin' servant, as it seems, and I'd rather live alone than spend one more hour taking care of her. But on the other end, I doubt myself. Am I really dumping someone that is depressed? I feel horrible about it. I feel like a failure. I just need advice. Edit. Wow, I stepped away from my phone for a while and returned to a ton of comments. Thank you all so much. I will try to read them all. Edit 2. While I have a hard time defending my wife right now, let me clarify something that is popping up in some comments. I know for a fact that she did not sleep around with anyone while we were separated. Update. Let me start by thanking all the people who responded. There was a lot of insight, a lot of advice, and a lot of support. And while there were certainly a fair share of people just looking for an argument, insulting me, making offensive comments, or trying to rope me into something called MG-toe. Luckily, the vast majority of replies were great and stuff I could work with, especially those who are in similar situations, and those who are in said situation but are the depressed party proved to give me some insight I sometimes did not even consider. Also, I am sorry for not being able to respond to everyone. I really tried my best to respond, but there were so many comments I honestly couldn't keep up anymore. But rest assured, I tried to read just about every single comment, so your advice likely did not go in vain, and I appreciate it. I ended up having a really good think about my entire situation, trying to wait out whether I would be able to give her another chance to begin with, as despite my post would give away was actually something I struggled with. I was a bit of an emotional mess after all, and honestly, I sort of lacked control over my emotions. As you might have noticed in some of my responses, sometimes I seemed nostalgic, forgiving and nice. Other times I seemed vengeful, resentful, and hateful. I will admit off the bat that this is all me, and like I told some people in messages, I was and still am not in the best of places emotionally. But I have been working on getting my own emotions under control the past few days, and I can say I am in a better place than I was a week ago, but it will certainly take some more time for me to recuperate from all of this. Now, off to what people were likely looking to see. What ended up happening this week that made me decide to make an update post? Well, after all that thinking, I decided, regardless of what course I would be taking, as some people suggested, it would be my decisions and my decision alone, not the decision of my parents, her parents, friends, or people on the internet. Mine alone. A decision I would be the one living with at the end of the day. So I decided I would inevitably end up regretting it all if I did not at the very least talk to my wife and get some closure. So that is exactly what I did. 2 days ago, I decided to invite her to our home to talk about our relationship, what I would be doing going forward, her depression, and so forth. Basically, just to get it all on the table. Now, it would be impossible to narrate this entire conversation, and honestly, it was about some very personal stuff, so I would not want to even if I could. So I will instead try to break it down and give a summary of sorts. We ended up discussing our entire relationship. I must admit it was very awkward and confronting, as it was about a lot of stuff myself in particular had bottled up for so long. It was very hard for me not to start yelling. I told her I was exhausted. I told her everything we had been trying obviously had not been working. I told her I felt like a doormat. I told her she was not the person I married. I told her these 3 months had been liberating for me. I told her I was tired of it all. I told her that I felt like she wasn't doing anything to help herself. I told her she was not doing anything around the house. I told her a marriage is supposed to be a partnership, but I felt like I was basically married to myself and that I was the only partner in this relationship. Anyway, I unloaded the stuff I had been feeling for years. By now, I told her I had a hard time not regretting the day I married her at this point, and while it obviously really hurt her to hear, she told me she knew. She knew I was unhappy. She knew she had been anything but a partner. She knew she was horrible about it all. But she felt like whatever she tried, she always ended up fearing getting better, getting demotivated to do anything. And that when she left, she almost felt like she had burdened me enough that it wasn't for her, but for me. But that she went about it the wrong way and ended up blaming the therapist as an easy way out. While it was true the therapist had guided her in some way towards this decision, the decision she made was for the right reasons, but the explanation she provided was tailored to her, not to me, which was disregarding the therapist's advice entirely. She said she felt guilty about it all and that guilt was just making her psychological state even worse. She said she hated seeing me going to work, coming home exhausted and having to clean everything up, until I just passed out, essentially. Which, I might add, is a massive step for her, as she never admitted this. But she started admitting a lot of stuff and apologizing for a lot of things in our relationship. She said her time away made her realize how much I made to her and how much she took for granted, and that she should have done better a long time ago. To which I told her I felt like I had been enabling her, essentially, while I had tried to keep her to her medication and all of that. At the end of the day, it was always me picking up after her, which probably made it easier for her to slip back in to it all. Well, after hours upon hours of talking, we ended up hugging for what seemed like over an hour before going back to talking, and she basically said she understood if I would not take her back. She understood if I did not trust her to get better. She understood that I was tired, but she asked me to give her one more chance, and she would do anything for it. Thank you, Dr. Shoemaker, for your understanding. My edict was to serve successfully for 3 years and to be admitted to retirement. I have to admit, my mind immediately wanted me to go to the obvious option, which was not taking her back, not giving her a chance, but honestly, in this discussion, she was the person I was once in love with. She seemed to take ownership of things. She seemed different somehow, but I also knew the risks coming with taking her back, and honestly, I was not about to pull another Hail Mary. So I told her I would be willing to give it a shot, but it wouldn't be like before, not at all. Told her she would have to prove she was going to put in the effort first, before we could even begin. Firstly, I told her she had to get a part-time job. I don't care what sort of job, whether it is waiting tables, at a clothing store, or at some company. It is irrelevant, as long as she made sure to go every single time she was supposed to go, look presentable when going, and made sure she did her best at said job. Secondly, she knows I like going to the gym. As such, she would be going with me at least 3 times a week, get in shape again, get some exercise in, but most of all, be busy in a healthy way. Thirdly, she is going to help her parents around the house while she stays there. No more sitting in her room along with her thoughts, groceries, dishes, vacuuming, whatever. She was going to make an effort doing it every single day. Fourthly, as some people suggested, we were going to go on a date once a week. No more escaping, not wanting to go outside, feeling self-conscious. No more excuses. Fifthly, we were going to do couples counseling. I know we tried before, but we will try again. Sixth, she is going to go to a new therapist, not lie about anything anymore, and do what the therapist tells her. Seventh, if the therapist suggests medication, she is going to take them every time she is supposed to take them, and I will keep them with me, and she will take them in front of me. No more forgetting, no more not taking them, no more complaining, and if there are issues with them, we will try different ones. But regardless, she is going to stick to it. I told her, once we are doing all that we can, go to the next stage of repairing our relationship. But until she does them and keeps them up for a good few months, there is not a single chance I will continue our relationship. And yes, I know ultimatums are a taboo on relationship advice, but I don't think I have much of a choice. To my surprise, she actually agreed, and to my even bigger surprise, despite it only having been 2 days, she was actually helping her mother and father around the house yesterday, and has been looking for jobs. Her dad also said she seems a lot more cheerful. Now I know there is a long road left, and I know there is a good chance this won't work out, and that I should not cheer too early, but honestly, I am hoping I get my wife back, and I felt I owe it to myself to at least allow her this one last chance. Call me an idiot for giving her this chance, but, well, perhaps I am an idiot. That was my update. I am not sure whether I will make another. I had honestly not even planned on making this one. I want to thank the people who responded to my other post again for their insight and advice, and I hope all of you live happily ever after or something. Haha.
My husband of 20 years is cheating on me with our son's 18-year-old girlfriend. These pseudonyms for anyone I reference in this post. I am a stay-at-home mom. My husband, 48, whom we'll call Paul, works in finance. We have been married for nearly 20 years. We have 2 kids, whom we'll call Eric, our 18-year-old son, currently a senior in high school, and Mary, our 15-year-old daughter. They are both the lights of my life. My marriage with my husband has grown somewhat stale over the years for a myriad of reasons, such as his work schedule and how I've aged poorly since we first met. Our son Eric has a girlfriend, 18, whom he's been dating since they were freshmen in high school. We'll call her Amy. Eric absolutely adores Amy. She's his first love, and she's someone I've always considered as family. This makes the whole situation emotionally excruciating for me. I send her fond love. Last week, I inadvertently saw my husband's phone screen and got a glimpse of a text thread between my husband and Amy, our son's girlfriend, and I read what looked like a message of her telling him that she misses sucking his cock. I froze in place, in complete disbelief. I spent most of the day convincing myself that I must have misread what I saw. However, I didn't misread it, because over the last several days, I discovered a file on his computer filled with tons of BDSM porn. He clearly has a porn addiction. He also has saved photos of Amy from her Instagram on his computer. Although they weren't inappropriate, she was fully clothed. It was still the proof I needed to confirm that I wasn't going crazy. I also looked at his phone during opportune moments and saw more of their interactions. I wish I had never looked. They were filled with mean, horrible things said at my expense, with him constantly comparing me to her. He would call me fat and old, among other things, with Amy lolling. I've always had hunches or paranoid feelings that Paul has been cheating on me, but never in a million years could I have fathomed something like this. Last month, I found a thong in our bedroom that I know wasn't mine. I turned a blind eye to it, being naive and acting like it was maybe our daughter's, even though that made zero sense. Not only is he cheating on me, but he's betraying our son. I'm completely devastated, and I don't even think words can adequately describe the dread, anger, shock I feel right now. I'm totally overwhelmed on how to handle this, because obviously action needs to be taken, but I'm terrified of what kind of psychic blow this will be for my son. I have no idea how to even broach this completely freaked up topic with him. I wouldn't wish this predicament on my worst enemy. I can't even believe I married this scumbag in the first place. And then my mind started to race, realizing that I started noticing specifically unusual behavior from him around the same time Amy turned 18. Was he waiting for her to turn 18 before pursuing this affair? There's so many layers to all of this, and I'm completely paralyzed with fear and dread about it all. None of it makes any freaking sense. How did this happen? Am I that much of a stupid idiot that I let all of this happen under my watch? Eric adores Amy, and the thought of revealing this sickening truth to him terrifies me. The impact on his young heart and mind could be devastating. My heart aches for Eric and Mary, who are completely innocent bystanders. I haven't confronted my husband about this because I'm frankly scared of the domino effect. I don't know who to turn to first about this. I share my story not for sympathy, but in search of understanding, and perhaps advice from those who might have had to grapple with deep betrayal. Thank you for listening. Update. I'm using pseudonyms for confidentiality. I shared a situation a few days ago on another subreddit involving my husband, Paul, our children, Eric, and Mary. I discovered that Paul was having an affair with our son's 18-year-old girlfriend, Amy. My son has been dating her since they were freshmen in high school. My brother connected me to a very tough junkyard dog-type lawyer. I saved screenshots of all his conversations with Amy. I was only able to get the last 3 months from iCloud. The conversations were mostly flirty and dirty talk. It was hard to stomach, completely sleazy, and I saw several negative things said about me. His call history showed he talks with her for hours pretty consistently. He uses dating apps. I took screenshots of his profiles and all of the active chats he has with his matches. It's very clear he uses a filter to seek out girls who are 18 to 22 or so. Listening. I copied all of his files from the computer. He goes on sex chat rooms and forums, and he spends a ton of money on OnlyFans. I rummaged through every possible hiding spot I could think of in the house. He had various toys, blindfolds, cuffs, lubricants, etc. He also had different outfits, which looked kind of like a girls' Catholic school uniform and a French maid type outfit, too. I picked up Eric and Mary from school, and we all drove to my brother's. They were able to sense something was awry when I picked them up. I delicately told them the entire situation, and I broke down crying. Mary had the most anger, even more than Eric. I met with Amy's mother and told her everything. She confiscated Amy's phone and gave me the entire chat log. It only dated back 3 months ago, like on my husband's cloud, almost as if they both deleted the messages at the same time. She told me Amy sobbed when confronted. Amy basically told her mother that she will never understand and that she and him are in love. I don't want to get into too many details with what else she was saying, but suffice to say, it's very easy to assume that my husband slowly and methodically became a sage-like figure in her life, making her feel she could rely on him. And he took advantage of the fact that she came from a broken home. Amy is also nonstop insistent that their friendship only became romantic/physical recently, and before that, she said he was more of a friend and mentor. I confronted Paul over Zoom. The look on his face was scary. He became red and looked so sweaty. He had anger and panic in his eyes. His tone of voice was very defensive and frightening. He kept yelling the word insightful over and over again, and that none of that happened. He was unable to speak without constant stutters and intensity. Nothing really made any sense to me. I refused to tell him where I was, and he said I had no right to take his kids away from him. And then he abruptly left the Zoom. My lawyer is filing for temporary sole custody of Mary and a restraining order. Mary is still the most angry. She's totally furious with her dad and Amy, justifiably so, of course. Mary is recollecting moments and times she watched her dad interact with her friends, and she's in knots about it. Eric is very clearly hurting, but he's so strong and very level-headed. He wants to see a therapist. The maturity my kids are showing makes me proud. They don't deserve this at all. We made the authorities aware of everything. I plan on being completely unforgiving and ruthless in this divorce. I'm reflecting on how I've been treated and how it's made me a shell of myself and how I've had a very negative opinion of myself because of him over the last 20 years. I don't want to let this scumbag get away with it. I want to reinvent myself and move on stronger than ever. Update. Thank you again for all the love and encouragement. It gives me comfort and means so much to me. I've received many comments and messages accusing me of faking this story, which oddly also provides comfort because all of this feels unreal even to me. It validates my own feelings that there are people out there who can't even fathom this being true. I wish it were fake. I've been focusing on and worrying about how others are feeling over this, somewhat ignoring my own feelings, which I'm trying to change. I range from anger to numbness like a light switch. We're all safe and still at my brother's house. We're very careful, and his house is secured. Paul has tried to call my cell phone several times a day. I am refusing to interact with him, and I will have my lawyer handle all correspondence. He scares me, frankly. My brother has a very secure house with an alarm system and deadbolt locks. We feel safe with him. Both my son and I got checked out and tested. It appears so far that we're both clean based on the immediate rapid tests, but in the coming days we'll know for certain when the lab results come in. I'm not overly concerned. Eric is scheduled to see a therapist early next week, which is very good and needed. He's not himself right now. He seems a bit shell-shocked, and I am concerned. He internalizes a lot, and it's hard to get a read on what's going on in his head. That being said, he's thoughtful and has been talking with me, asking me how I'm doing and everything. He's not interested in corresponding with his dad at all. He calls only my cell phone, and he hasn't tried to reach out to either Eric or Mary. I get the sense that Paul is extremely nervous. He's scared, and I think he deep down knows that if investigated thoroughly, he would be in big trouble. That's what my gut is telling me. I still think about the Zoom call with him, and the more I think about it, the more it looked like he was a man whose entire world was crashing down on him. The panic in his face was very apparent. I offered Mary for me to make an appointment with a therapist as well, but she doesn't want to see one yet. She said she's open to it eventually, but wants time to herself. She's been asking her friends about her dad and if they experienced any creepiness from him. Her friends were open and honest with her, and apparently they felt like he stared a lot and sensed his hovering presence whenever they were over. One of Mary's friends went so far as to say that she felt like he was checking her out a lot. like looking at her rear and complimenting the color of her yoga pants. At the time, no issue was brought up about it, but in light of everything that has been happening, it seems strange now. He would sit himself in different areas or vantage points to get a good view of her, she claimed. He also asked questions about what kind of friend group or which clique they were in at school. He kept asking about if they were popular girls. I'm completely embarrassed that they had this experience at our house. As for updates on Amy, which is the main reason why I wanted to write this update, I completely agree that she is also a victim. A lot of people have been emphasizing that, and I agree. I've done everything I could in my own power to indirectly get her opportunities to get help. Like I said, I told her mother, and she's been updating me on everything. Amy, unfortunately, is still living in her deluded reality, and I can only pray that she'll eventually come to her senses. She doesn't want to see any doctors or therapists at all and has been constantly trying to reach Paul because, again, she believes that they are in love. From what I've been told, she hasn't been able to get hold of him, and he's been avoiding communication with her completely. Amy blames me for that and believes I took away his devices and am very controlling. Any truth that her mother tries to convey to her is met with conspiracy theories and hostility. Amy looks at me as a villain and still sees Paul through rose-colored glasses. Her mother showed her screenshots of his dating app profiles and matches, and she refuses to believe it, saying I photoshopped it. According to her mom, Amy keeps saying things like, everyone is just mad because she found herself a real man, and that I'm jealous because she takes better care of him than I do. It's in line with some of the conversations I screenshot, where a lot of what Paul says is him complaining about things I don't do for him sexually. Right now, she's insistent that she and Paul will be together in the long run. He's honestly a slime ball. I can only hope that Amy comes to her senses, but me directly intervening doesn't feel like it would be productive at the moment. Maybe eventually, though. I think my wife might be cheating on me with a 17-year-old she coaches, but I don't know for sure. What should I do? All right, I never thought I'd be in this situation, but I'm completely at a loss here and I need some advice. My wife has been acting really strange lately, and I'm starting to think she might be cheating on me with one of the kids she coaches. I feel sick even typing that. Some background: my wife is an accountant by day, and in the evenings she volunteers as a soccer coach for a local youth team. She's always loved soccer, and I thought it was great that she was so involved with the kids in the community. But recently she's been dropping weird comments that are starting to really concern me. It all started about 2 months ago. She casually mentioned one of the boys on her team. He's 17, and I won't say his name for obvious reasons. At first it was harmless stuff, like he's really talented for his age, or he's a natural leader on the field. I didn't think much of it because, well, she's a coach and it's her job to encourage the kids, right? But then the comments started to get weird. Like one night, out of nowhere, she said, this guy has really pretty eyes. They're so striking. I remember thinking, that's an odd thing to say about a kid you're coaching. I kind of brushed it off at first, but then more things followed. Another time she came home after practice and said, he's so much more athletic than anyone else on the team. It's impressive how developed he is. Again, I tried to shake it off, but my gut started nagging at me. Why is she talking about him so much? Then there's the fact that she's been getting way more secretive. She's always been open with her phone and emails, but lately she's been turning her screen away from me when she texts or checks messages. I asked her about it and she just laughed it off, saying I was being paranoid. She's also been staying later and later after practices. At first she told me it was just because they were prepping for some tournament, but now, even with the tournament over, she's still coming home late. When I ask, she gives vague excuses like, oh, the team needed extra help, or I had some paperwork to catch up on. Here's the thing that really has me spiraling. Last week I came home early from work. I expected to have the house to myself since she was supposed to be at practice. But when I walked in, I found her sitting on the couch texting someone with a huge smile on her face. When she saw me, she quickly locked her phone and got super flustered. She said it was just one of the parents asking about game schedules, but it didn't feel right. I don't have any solid proof, but something just feels off. Why would she be talking about this kid's looks? Why is she suddenly so secretive? I haven't been able to shake the feeling that something more is going on. I don't want to accuse her of something so serious without any real evidence, but I also don't want to ignore my instincts. I love her, and I really don't want to believe she'd do something like this, especially with a kid she's supposed to be mentoring. So Reddit, what should I do? Am I reading too much into this? Is she cheating on me with this 17-year-old, or am I just being paranoid? How do I even begin to confront her about something like this? Any advice would be appreciated. I'm honestly feeling lost right now. Updates. Hi, everyone. First off, I want to thank all of you for the overwhelming amount of comments, advice, and support on my original post. I really needed some sense knocked into me, and I genuinely appreciate the community's input. It has meant a lot during this confusing time. After reading your comments, I took some of your advice and contacted my lawyer on the evening of my original post. I'll go into more details about that shortly, but before diving into the updates, I'd like to clarify why this post is coming out now and in this format. Unfortunately, after posting, my original post was taken down and I received a 3-day ban from the subreddit. Thankfully, the post was later restored, but I had to wait until the ban lifted to share updates. I did keep track of each development and wrote them out as they happened, so I'll be sharing them in chronological order, just as I intended from the start. I am posting the updates on a new post because there is so much to say, and I think creating a new post is best for organizing all of the updates in a clear manner. In the update post, we'll include a link to the original post for those who may not have seen it. Update 2. For those of you who didn't see my original post, here's a brief summary. In my previous post, I shared some difficult suspicions about my wife, who recently became increasingly close to a 17-year-old boy she coaches. She started making strange comments about his looks, athletic abilities, and personal qualities that went beyond her usual enthusiasm for coaching. Meanwhile, she's become much more secretive with her phone and is often late home from practice without clear explanations. These changes have left me wondering if there's something more happening between them, but I don't have solid proof and don't want to jump to conclusions without evidence. Late update. First off, I want to thank everyone for the comments, advice, and support on my original post. Unfortunately, my original post was initially taken down, and I received a 3-day temporary ban from the subreddit. Thankfully, the post was eventually restored after my ban ended. Since I wasn't able to share updates during that time, I've decided to create a new post with all the updates so far, structured chronologically to keep everything organized. Sorry to keep everyone waiting. This is why I'm only updating now, and the last 5 days have also been a whirlwind. Post update 1. I took some of your advice and reached out to a lawyer, sort of. An old friend from high school who's now a successful family lawyer happens to be visiting this week. While family law isn't exactly what I need, I'd rather speak to someone I trust before hiring a lawyer and potentially escalating things out of control. I'm meeting him for coffee tomorrow and will update you afterward. I'm hoping he can give me some solid legal advice without things getting too intense. I obviously don't want her to be arrested or anything drastic like that, but I also don't know what to do next. Right now, I'm not even angry, just overwhelmed and in shock. It's hard to process that someone I've been so close to over the last 2 years might not be who I thought and could have been hiding something awful this whole time. Post update 2. The last 5 days have been absolute hell. The title is a bit of a giveaway, but pretty much everyone who commented was right, and my own suspicions have been confirmed. After talking to my friend, the lawyer, we agreed that I should confront her with my concerns and suggest looking through her phone together, just to put some of my suspicions to rest. I realized how risky this was, but we really didn't have a lot of choice considering there was no clear proof that anything weird had been going on. He suggested that we meet somewhere quiet, but still in a public setting in case she decided to freak out and do something irrational. I decided to take her to our local park, where I sat her down on a park bench, well away from any crowds of people. When we sat down together, I told her how serious of a situation we could be in and that she must be completely honest with me and that she must want to be on her side, but the way she had been acting had led to some serious suspicions. I explained to her that I didn't want to break the trust between us, so had decided against looking through her phone, despite how tempted I was. When I told her the concerns, she immediately got defensive and started denying everything. She called me a paranoid asshole for even suggesting that she would be in a relationship with a minor. She said the fact that I would even question something like this means there's probably something wrong with me and that I must be the one hiding something. Honestly, the way she reacted just confirmed to me that there was something that she hadn't been telling me this entire time, and that without her cooperation, the safest bet was probably just to leave. I suggested that we look through her phone together just to provide me with closure, and even if there was nothing to hide, it would mean a lot to me that she would just humor me, and that it might even be fun to look through together and laugh at how ridiculous I was being. She screamed at me for trying to invade her privacy and that I had massively overstepped the line, before storming away from me back to the car and driving to her friend's house to stay for the night. I don't know what she talked about with her friend, but at around 3 a.m. the next morning, I got a really long text from her giving her view of the situation. The messages was as follows. The entire message was considerably long, so I've summarized it for this post. My wife and I really don't think what I have been doing is wrong. It started with me just helping this kid with some extra practice because he was struggling to get the hang of some of the drills we had been working on in that day's training session. These private sessions were becoming more regular, and after about 3 weeks of extra training sessions, he sent me a friend request to my Instagram. He wasn't the first one of the team to send me a request, and I wouldn't usually accept them, but as I was giving this kid private coaching sessions, I thought it made more sense. He started to send me DMs, so I responded, because I'm not a total asshole. Okay, maybe the texts aren't just about soccer anymore. There's nothing wrong with being friends with a kid. You've always been super close to your younger brother, and I've never called you out for being weird. The message then proceeded to say how much of an asshole I was for trying to call her out and trapping her in a situation that would always leave her looking bad. She ended the message by telling me that she thinks that she'll be able to look past this and forgive me for being a total insecure dickhead, and that if I ever questioned her like this again, she would be filing for a divorce. I was in complete shock when I read this response, as I have never seen this side of my wife. This is not the kind, loving, respectful, and open person whom I had married, and it is driving me totally insane. I just don't know what to do. I understand that what she was telling me is not normal, and I can't believe how naive I have been for so long, but I still feel like there's even more going on that she's not telling me. Her long message didn't actually explain why she had been messaging this kid so much and for so long, or why she had been spending literal hours every evening locked in our bedroom or on the sofa, just on her phone. I don't know. Maybe I am just being paranoid. Maybe this is more normal than I'm making it out to be, although this seems unlikely. Should I still try to look through her phone anyway, despite what she's told me? When we had met the previous day, my friend mentioned that this was out of his field, but that I shouldn't contact the police until I was more sure of anything, because if we did end up getting a divorce, and she is technically innocent, calling the police on your wife for providing extra help to a kid she coaches wouldn't look very good for me in a courtroom. Again, I apologize to everyone for the late update, and I know this post is kind of all over the place, but I hope you have been able to follow. Edit. This post was temporarily removed, but has now been reinstated. I appreciate all the support and advice so far, and I'll be responding to comments to answer questions and clear up any confusion. I will be giving another update on the development of the situation. Thank you for your patience. In my first post, I shared that I had been increasingly concerned about my wife's fixation on a 17-year-old boy she coaches. Over the past months, she's brought him up constantly, talking about his potential and struggles almost daily. At first, I assumed it was part of her dedication to her volunteer work, but her focus on him seemed to cross professional boundaries, especially as she became defensive and secretive when I asked about it. Many suggested I look deeper, and after further observation, I noticed she was glued to her phone at odd hours, sometimes smiling or acting distant. Thank you to everyone who reached out in my previous posts. Your advice and support have helped me more than I can express. I took a lot of your suggestions to heart, and it's been a complicated journey. Here's what's happened since then. Post update 3, I did what many people suggested and contacted our local police. Although this would be the preferred option, our current financial positional and my current salary doesn't allow me to hire a private investigator. She is also the main earner in the relationship, about 60% of our shared income. Not only can I not afford to hire a PI, but there's also the issue that we have a shared bank account, any purchases. I am aware that it's always smart to have our own individual bank accounts alongside a shared one, but we have been so close as trusting with each other that we haven't really seen the need for this, and having a joint account has never really been an issue. As her job as an accountant, she is mainly in charge of managing our banking, and any large purchases have to go through both of us. Just by the way the account is set up, this means it would be practically impossible to hire a private investigator without her finding out. After our last conversation, she has moved back after staying with her friend, and we are living in the same home. It is very awkward, and I have been trying to avoid her wherever possible, whilst doing my best not to let on that I am trying to dig further. It was about a day after my last post that I decided to contact the police, and after a pretty long conversation explaining the situation, they told me that there was no legal grounds for them to take action without any concrete evidence or clear signs of suspicious activity. They advised me to keep an eye out and call them immediately if anything new came up. I appreciated their time, but honestly, their advice didn't give me a clear path forward. Post update 4. So, there has been a major development to the situation. I am feeling a load of complicated emotions right now, and writing this has been very tricky. Since the police couldn't help, I took advice from many of you and contacted our shared mobile provider. After some back and forth, they sent over outcall and SMS records from the past 6 months. These records only cover standard messages and calls. I spent hours combing through these records, trying to find anything unusual, and eventually found what I was looking for: a lot of messages and calls with a specific unknown number. After digging into it, I realized that this number wasn't the kid's, it belonged to his dad. Suddenly, things clicked, and at the same time, I was thrown into a whirlwind of emotions: grief, anger, disbelief. In a weird way, I was also somewhat relieved. I don't know for sure, but what I think has been going on this entire time is my wife has been having an affair with this kid's dad, hence her recent obsession. Knowing full well that she couldn't openly talk about her relationship with this dad, it appears she has been using his son as an outlet to talk about him in our daily lives without arousing too much suspicion. In some strange way, I even feel a hint of relief. If I'm right, at least she wasn't involved with a minor. This still feels like a betrayal, but one that's more bearable than the alternative. Looking through the messages, I can now see that she is obsessed with this man, and it looks like they are in love. I am distraught that this has been going on now for so long, and that the person who I have trusted and confided in for so long has been lying to me this entire time. I cannot really put the way I am feeling into words. I can't be certain that nothing inappropriate happened between her and the kid, but this explanation now feels more plausible to me. Still, I feel like I'm mourning the person I thought I knew and loved. The woman I've been with for 6 years, whom I trusted completely, has been hiding this from me, and it's crushing. Post update 5. I honestly don't see any way of working through this, so I have contacted a divorce attorney and am filing for a divorce. She isn't aware yet, as my lawyer and I are just making everything final before serving her with the papers. I am also looking for a new apartment that I can move into when this becomes more final. My father passed away 10 years ago from lung cancer, and my mom just passed away pretty recently during lockdown. I have one brother who lives on the other side of the globe and has very little contact with him nowadays. I haven't seen him since my mom's funeral, and my wife has really been the only person who has been alongside me through these tricky last few years. She has family, both her parents are still alive, and she's very close to her sister. I have no idea if any of them know anything about what's going on, but I know she tells her sister everything. Also, most of my friends are also friends of hers, or in a relationship to one of her friends, as I was new to the area when we met and didn't know many people. I don't really want to put them in the situation of having to pick sides, but also could really do with a close friend to express my feelings to. As far as the kid and his dad, I still don't actually know who they are. I don't tend to get involved with her work, like volunteering. I have never met anyone on the team she coaches or any of their parents, so I obviously don't know anything about this guy. In none of the messages was there any mention of a wife or girlfriend, only the name of his son. At this stage, I don't think it's my responsibility to try and inform the family of the guy she's been seeing, as I literally don't even know who he is. I don't plan on confronting her about everything I have found out, but will definitely answer any questions if she asks why I'm so suddenly asking for a divorce. I would really like to hear if anyone else has had similar experiences and what would be the best way to move forward. What's the best way to go about a tricky divorce without anyone close to me to ask for guidance and support? Thank you for reading, and I'll keep everyone updated as I figure out the next steps. Any further advice would be deeply appreciated. Newest update: I'm divorcing my wife after discovering her affair with the dad of one of the kids she coaches. Recap of the situation leading to this update. I became suspicious of my wife after she started making strange comments about a 17-year-old boy she coaches in soccer. When I confronted her, she became defensive and lashed out. After going through her phone, I discovered that she's likely been having an affair with the boy's father. Initially, I felt a sense of relief that it wasn't a predatory situation, but I was also overwhelmed with grief and betrayal, realizing that my wife had been unfaithful. Update: first off, I just want to thank you all for your support and patience through this difficult time. Unfortunately, my most recent update was removed, so I reposted it, but that was then locked, so I haven't been able to reply to any comments or make any edits to the actual post. Now, before the update, I also need to admit something that I lied about in my last update. I said I got records from our shared phone provider, but the truth is, I actually went through her phone. I was nervous about admitting this on here and worried about potential consequences, but in retrospect, I feel I had good enough reason to check, and the phone was purchased using our shared bank account, which could give me a valid claim for accessing it. If it counts for anything, I did try to contact our shared service provider, but they told me they don't give out any specific personal information. This includes messages to anyone but the police for security and confidentiality reasons. When looking through her messages with Hot Soccer Dad, the same name kept coming up, and it became clear that this was the kid. The messages made it quite obvious who it was, as they were often using the kid as an excuse to stay in contact. The conversations were overly flirty, and it was quite obvious that something was going on between the two of them. On top of this, it looks like they have met up several times for coffee after practice. I don't know where the kid goes in that time, as there is still no mention of his mother, and I still don't know much about the kid's family situation. With all that said, I'm relieved to say that things are finally moving forward. I decided to meet with a divorce attorney who has been fantastic and am in the process of finalizing everything. I'm now set up in a temporary apartment with a separate bank account. It was surprisingly easy to open, and I regret not doing it earlier. The freedom it's given me has been a massive weight off my shoulders. I'm not naive anymore, and I have no intention of dragging this out, but no, things may still get complicated. Though, after a lot of stress and uncertainty, I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a relief to think shall soon be out of my life. The last real piece of bad news in this update: her family, especially her sister, is fully aware of the situation, but has chosen to side with her. I've never been the biggest fan of her sister, to be completely honest, but never to this extent. I've been receiving aggressive messages from her sister, calling me selfish and threatening to ensure my wife gets everything. They've even implied that they use their family's financial resources to back her legally, as they're well off and have offered to cover her costs. To add to this, there are some legal loopholes regarding shared assets, including the house, which could mean I have a lot more to lose in this than I expected. This has been a humbling and in some ways eye-opening experience. I always assumed infidelity or these kinds of situations would be easy to spot. I never expected to be blindsided by my own partner, someone I loved and trusted completely. I realize now that betrayal doesn't fit into near categories or follow obvious patterns. Although this situation didn't turn out to be the predatory relationship I feared, it showed me that anyone, male or female, can be vulnerable to this kind of manipulation. With the court date likely coming up in the next couple months and the divorce process underway, it feels like I'm nearing the end of this exhausting chapter. I'm incredibly grateful for all the support and insight I've received here. It's been a strange few weeks, but I'm determined to close this chapter and start fresh. I'll keep sharing updates as things progress, though I don't foresee too many more developments. Thank you again for being there. I know I can't respond to everyone, but your encouragement has meant a lot and given me the courage to keep on fighting. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to add. I reconnected with my brother and shared everything about what's been happening. Thankfully, he was really glad I reached out, and he's actually planning to come visit at the end of the year. I'm really looking forward to it. I've missed him a lot since we last saw each other during the difficult time of our mother's passing. Since this is the r/advice subreddit, I still need to ask for advice. So, can anyone give me any advice on how to get through a tricky divorce? Has anyone else been through anything similar to this? What is the best way to move on with my life? Slight chance my pregnant wife had an affair. Should I ask for a paternity test or wait? My wife and I have been together for 12 years. I don't know how to describe it other than calling it the perfect relationship. I think in 12 years, we've only ever gotten to the point of really raising our voices at one another maybe 2 or 3 times. We do everything together, but always have never had issues allowing each other to lead our own lives and follow our own interests. We bought a house we wanted. We both have good, high-paying jobs that have great work-life balance. Basically, it's been everything short of perfect. We've been trying for 2 years to get pregnant. It hasn't been happening. We were just about to start the fertility stuff when I came home from a work trip, and guess what? She's pregnant. I had this weird, instant thought of, wait, I thought we didn't try during the week last month because of the fertility testing. But I couldn't remember exactly because, to be honest, we were busy at it, so I just assumed I misremembered. Now, I travel around the country pretty regularly for work. Other than COVID, I've been on the road as much as 40 weeks a year sometimes. Since COVID, it's been less, but still more than a week a month. Over the last 4 to 5 years, my wife has gotten very friendly with the guy she works with. Let's call him Matt. Matt is slightly younger, I think 34 male or so. I know him. He's married. I know his wife. They've worked together for, I think, 7 years or so. He's always been around. Him and I have been friendly. Have I ever thought something was happening? No, but I've always thought you'd be a fool to not think there's even a 1% chance your spouse would go outside the relationship. Maybe I'm naive, but I've always seen it as a safeguard to not take my wife or any other partner in the past for granted. She's never given me a reason to think she'd do that, but anything is possible. So about a month ago, I'm out of state for work and she's at home. I ask her what she's doing earlier in the day, and she says Matt is coming by for dinner. Not out of the ordinary. Matt comes by from time to time, sometimes with his wife, sometimes without, sometimes when I'm not there. I don't think much of it. We have a security system, which includes cameras both inside and outside of the house, which we installed after an unrelated incident a few years ago. They record and are live accessible by both her and I. I often use those cameras to check on the dog when I or both of us are away, as the rest of the system is monitored by a company in case of an alarm going off. She knows I check those cameras. There's a system installed where I can talk through them. I'll mess with my wife and she will with me on them if either of us are out of town. She travels for work as well, but far less than I do. Point is, it's known that I check them often when I'm not at home. So I turn on the camera and I see my 4 months pregnant wife lying on the floor on her side with Matt sitting, straddling her legs and using a foam roller to message her hips. So I'm like, okay, what the frick is this? I start rewinding through the footage and they are eating and talking normally, but then they get on the couch and get under the same blanket. Now, they are feet to feet, but that couch isn't that big. Then they move to the floor, and that's when I logged in. Anyway, I text her. I'm still watching the cameras. They both look like deer in headlights, and he very quickly leaves. We get into an argument. She isn't mad at me accusing her, but she's adamant that nothing has or ever would happen, and that what I saw was innocent, and she was complaining about being in pain from the pregnancy, which I know is true. She's already having some issues with back pain, etc. The biggest point of that discussion was I asked, if I were there, would you two have been comfortable doing any of that in front of me? And she reluctantly admitted, no, probably not. I told her I didn't want to talk after that, and we'd talk when I got home 3 days later. That's when it hit me. What if my weird gut moment feeling about her telling me she was finally pregnant was this? What if my 1% happened and this is not my child we are having? What? Now it eats away at me while I'm at a hotel alone 1,000 miles away for 3 days. I reconcile with myself that I think it's less likely than more likely that something between them has happened. But basically my 1% just jumped to 10%, 20% maybe. I get home and she's on eggshells and doesn't mention it. I kind of wait to see what she's going to do. 2 days later, she finally brings it up and breaks down, swears nothing has happened. She would never, doesn't do anything over the top to try and prove anything, which I took as a good sign. But anyway, we talk out the issue and everything to a point of at least moving forward. For now, I'm still coping and dealing with it, figuring out how to retrust after all this time. I'm getting more and more understanding of the fact that they are friends. They've been friends for so long. Maybe he has intentions, but I don't see her having any. And I've never really picked up on it. And I've spent time around both of them together many, many times and never caught anything. So the thing that is destroying me right now is if I'm wrong and something did happen, while I can figure out how to deal with that, what if that child isn't mine? In the argument and few long conversations we've had about the situation since I've never brought that up, and she's not mentioned it, mostly because I don't want to make the situation worse and crush her if in fact she's telling the truth, which I mostly believe. The only thing I can think to do at this point is to wait until the baby is born and immediately order a paternity test in secret. Should I do that? Should I tell her and have it dealt with now? If you're a woman in her shoes and you're telling the truth, would that destroy you or your view of me? If you're lying, what would you do if I asked? I don't want to ask a super vague question, but what do I do? Update. So many comments. Thank you, everyone. More than I can address directly, but I'm going to keep reading a few things. 1, stop deeming me about this. Thanks. 2, Some have made some good points about addressing it now rather than later, and that's something that I'm considering more than I was before. Thank you. 3, to those focused only on my relationship, I get it, but that's not what I'm focused on. We've been talking about it a lot. My wife and I are pretty open people with each other. I'm not saying I'm convinced nothing happened, but I'm more focused on paternity right now. 4, if I need to, track, spy on, life 360, my wife. Then this relationship is over already. That's not the relationship we have and not one that I ever want, and in my opinion, not one anyone should ever have. We are working on rebuilding trust. As I said in this long-winded post, my default of 1% possibility went up to 10% or so. Trust me, I'm taking my relationship seriously, but to those I've said this to already, if the kid isn't mine, then there's no longer any conversation to have. 5, I've already had this discussion with my lawyer. I don't live in a state where the birth certificate stuff will be an issue. If I have paperwork that this child isn't mine, then divorce isn't going to be much of an issue. Both of us are in an independent financial situation where it won't matter much regardless. I'll keep up with this post as long as I can and post an update when and if anything gets resolved. Update May 10th, 2024. Update. Here's the original post from yesterday. So she was out of state on a business trip until late last night. It's Friday, so she worked from home in our kitchen. So I asked to talk and brought it up and asked for a test. She immediately said yes and said there's zero doubt and nothing that she'd even have a second to worry about. But she has no problem doing it now. The only caveat I left it with is if it's invasive at all per our doctors, then I'm okay waiting until it's low risk. I'm not a doctor, no clue what they'd have to do it now, so I'm not sure when we are. But she's aware, and we are getting one. It was a decent and longer conversation. We are currently sitting together getting lunch. She's got no clue I did this on Reddit, hence the new account, because she is on here somewhere. Thank you, everyone, for your help and opinions. A bunch of you made me realize that we are already really open about everything, and if nothing happened, then she wouldn't worry about getting one. I was more worried about her health and adding some insane level of stress if it was an issue, as she's an at-risk pregnancy, and it took so long for us to get pregnant. So again, thank you all for the help. I suppose I can update if it's mine or not, but I'm not sure how long that will be. I'm 95% sure it is mine. But this will help us continue this conversation. Thank you. Update. Just because it seems to be more of a topic on this post versus the other one, for some reason, yes, I have the footage. No, I haven't talked to Matt yet. He's told her he wants to talk about it, but I've told them to wait on that. My relationship with my wife and the paternity is what's important right now. I will eventually talk with Matt. No, I'm not going to get Matt's wife involved intentionally. I don't know why I would, other than just be vindictive. I'm not going to cover for him, obviously, but his relationship is his, and mine is mine. I'm not interested in making this worse. Whatever's going on between him and his wife isn't any of my business. Update 2. I'm an old man at heart, and I didn't understand how Update Bot works, so here's your next update. I also edited this into the last update. Update 3. Hi, folks. So I haven't been touching this account at all, as I was mostly bombarded by people telling me I'm an AI, wishing my wife a miscarriage, claiming she's going to get a secret abortion to save herself, or that I'm a clown for not keeping it real, and destroying someone else's marriage over speculation only. I'm amazed that people are still following this and invested in it after all this time. Here's where we are at. Yes, my wife is still very much pregnant. She's in the hard to pick things up off the floor stage. She's due in 8 weeks. Holy crap, 6 weeks actually. Just looked at the calendar. We are getting weekly ultrasounds at this point. He's already about 5 pounds and has a big old head. Her and I had some very long, direct conversations about everything. She is adamant that nothing has ever happened and nothing ever would. For a while, she was pretty upset with herself for causing this and causing my feelings of doubt. I've done my best to remedy that, as I've got to keep stress off her as much as possible right now, but it will for sure be revisited after the birth. As I've been saying the entire time, I'm really only worried about the child and the birth going well, etc. Well, maybe, not only. The only thing we still really disagree on is I thought he was getting too close because he had developed feelings or was getting attention that he wasn't getting elsewhere maybe, etc. She doesn't see it that way, but has also said it's possible, but if so, she was blind to it. I told her I wanted a paternity test, and she immediately agreed to it and said no problem at all. My only stipulation was that it couldn't be medically risky or stress-inducing at all, as she's a high-risk pregnancy. We both spoke to her doctors about it, and they basically told us that our only option was to go to the courthouse because they wouldn't do one without the law involved, which we both thought was ridiculous. Her doctor was a bit thrown off by it, and so I didn't press very hard. It was honestly her pretty much demanding it. I knew there were other options. I looked into those other options and ultimately decided to wait until the birth, and I have a lab already set up to do it, ready to go. 95% sure it's unnecessary, but I'm still getting one for my peace of mind, and mostly so that nothing will come between me and my child. For those of you that have left me messages of support that I didn't get back to, thank you. I'm going to spend some time going through them tonight before I run off again. For those of you who've left messages that think I should be acting like a 17-year-old high school student and either getting violent, purposely cheating on my wife to prove a point, or other childish trash, thanks for the entertainment at least. Stop watching TLC and TikTok. That dumbass drama ain't the way, kiddos. And to the one person who suggested I cause an accident with my wife, I hope you end up behind bars someday. It's really likely I'm not going to come back here after tonight until after I get the results from the lab. So if you're really still interested in the results came back in 1.5 to 2 months, I've been told the results take about 48 hours. Once submitted, I'll give you your Maury moment then. Quick update. Today is September 14th. We just got an induction date scheduled on the 26th. Update. Baby boy is here. Born September 27th, 7 pounds, 10 ounces. He had what the doctors in the OR said the biggest meconium they've seen in a while on the table, so it was likely he was about 8 pounds when he was born. Labor was induced early morning on the 26th. Labor was like 30 hours, pushed for like 3 hairs, no progress, ended up in with a C-section. He's perfectly healthy and kind of a tank. I was almost a 10L baby. Mom is dealing with recovery and not having a fun time, but we are getting there. We are being discharged on Tuesday, they tell us. We live about 2 miles from the hospital, so I've been going back to the house to shower and sneak in like an hour or two nap a couple times. Otherwise, I've been here the entire time. As for paternity, just out of all that entails with the birth of a newborn and recovery, and honestly, a bit of embarrassment, we haven't started the test, but it's set up and ready to start on Tuesday when we get out of here. So I'll give a final update after the results come back. So maybe another week to 10 days. My honest opinion after looking at this kid is he is mine. Matt and I are physically very opposite in heritages. I'm 6'3", 240 pounds. He's probably 5'8", 175 to 180 pounds. I've always held the belief that babies all generically look the same other than obvious ancestral differences. But yes, this moose of a baby has some obvious traits that would only come from me. Still doing the tests, but I'm very much not worried about it. I'll make a new post when I get the results back. Final update results are in October 10th, 2024. The baby is as healthy as could be so far. Mom, on the other hand, has been having issues. Baby was born on 9/27. Labor was 30 hours, ending in a C-section, 7 LFTinos. Didn't do so well. We were supposed to be in for 4 days and ended up the 8 days. Mom has been back to the hospital twice since. I'm currently sitting in the car with the little guy because Mom's in the emergency room right now. She is making progress, but still having a hard time with a few things. As I mentioned before, she has some pre-existing issues that we knew would make this hard. But there have been a few hurdles, but we are getting over them together. As far as paternity, the results came back this morning. Greater than 99.999 match that I am the father. I did pretty much already know this, but now there is no question and I can put it behind me. My wife and I have had long conversations about all this leading up to the birth, especially around the time of the original post when all this started. We are in a good place, and while it's always going to be there, we both have things to work on communication-wise that came from all this. I did also see Matt today. That's been settled. I'm pretty satisfied that what I saw was it, and there wasn't anything else beyond that, and it was a friend helping her with pain the same way I do. I do want to thank everyone who left a message or DM'd me. Good or bad comments, thank you. Talking to the void and all you strangers helped me wait this out. I appreciate it. I'm going to go enjoy my son's company now. Thank you again. Would I be the a-hole for ghosting my ex-wife? I know you're going to say it's fake and that you saw this Hallmark Christmas movie and I'm right there with you. Honestly, I wouldn't believe it either if it didn't happen to me. So, if you can't believe it, then just pretend and give me advice anyway, like I'm a real person. Because I am. I, 32 male, met Sarah, 30, in grade school in our small town. She was my first everything girlfriend, love, and eventually wife. We both went to college together, and after I graduated, we got married when I was 23 and she was 21. Sarah was still finishing her degree, and I worked hard to support both of us while she completed her studies. When she got her first job, I was so proud of her. It felt like all our sacrifices and hard work were paying off, and I thought we were on our way to building a life together. For 2 years, everything seemed fine, or at least I thought so. Then one day, I came home from work and found her packing a bag. She sat me down and told me she had been having an affair with a coworker. I was completely oblivious. She was crying and apologetic. She said she loved me, but she was in love with the coworker and they had this chemistry and a deep connection, and that she never felt this level of excitement and attachment with me. At the same time, she seemed to be really apologetic and acted very guilty. She moved in with the coworker that night. Sarah made the divorce as quick and easy as possible. She didn't contest anything and took almost nothing. In the state we lived in, you can get a divorce in 10 days if there aren't any children involved. We filed the papers ourselves. No lawyer. Couldn't afford one. After it was final, she asked if we could be friends. And I'm ashamed to say that I just broke down and sobbed like a baby in front of her, said nothing, and left. At that point, she was 23 and I was 25. A couple of years later, in early 2020, while riding out COVID in my hometown, my mom casually mentioned that Sarah had married the guy she left me for. Apparently, Sarah's parents and mine had talked about it since they're longtime friends, and Sarah's parents were hesitant about the marriage but supported her. Hearing that stung. I had done everything I could to move on, but knowing she had married her affair partner felt like reopening the wound. I told my mom as kindly as I could that I didn't want to hear about Sarah anymore. She understood and never brought her up again. I was broken and depressed at first, but I went to see a therapist and got on some meds. I got some certifications, and through a friend from college, I got an interview with a global consulting company. My friend was married and couldn't do the amount of travel that the job required, so he pushed hard for me for the position. I started traveling around the world and pretty much worked all the time at first. On any given day, I was either in the gym, working, or having a virtual therapy session at 3 a.m. I was a dull boy. I got into incredible shape thanks to lifting and running. Eventually, I got a long-term project in Romania and was able to meet and have relationships with women. Fast forward a few years. Recently, I had a few weeks of vacation saved up and I wanted to spend Christmas in Reykjavik, Iceland. I went to my parents' place in my hometown for Thanksgiving with my sister and brother. Last Thursday, I was at the local independent drugstore in what passes for downtown in my hometown. It has a lunch counter like an old-fashioned drugstore. I got a cup of coffee and sat down at the counter, drinking it when Sarah sat down beside me and said hello. She was super nervous and red in the face. I was shocked and just sat there looking at her. I was exploding inside, but I kept my cool outwardly. She was still beautiful. She was actually very fit herself and had lost her baby face and became maybe even more beautiful. She started off by apologizing for the way she ended our marriage. I told her she already apologized like 100 times when she dumped me, but she insisted that she was young and stupid, and over time she realized how much she had hurt me. She wanted to meet me later in a less crowded spot with fewer spies. Small town, remember? I shook my head no and told her frankly that I didn't see what I could possibly get out of meeting with her again. That kind of took the wind out of her sails and she kind of deflated. She admitted that it was probably more for her than for me. She said that I'd get closure, not only for how she ended things, but for the kind of person she was back then. She wanted to tell me about how she'd changed and what she'd learned about herself and what real love is. She wanted me to see that the person she became is someone that I could respect and maybe be friends with again. I wanted to get the hell out of there, so I just told her I'd think about it. She gave me her number and I went home. Apparently, my mother and sister had already heard about it from Sarah's mom, so I'm a big dumb victim of some kind of big dumb Hallmark Christmas movie hit job. My sister, 29F, and mom, 55F, told me that they kept up with Sarah since our divorce, and they know that she's changed and that I should hear her out. My dad, 56M, just shook his head and walked off. My brother, 22F, thought all of this was hilarious. I asked if he wanted to chime in, and he just shrugged his shoulders and said that since Sarah and I knew each other from when we were kids, I should at least hear her out just to keep the peace between our families since we live in a small town. Personally, I do think that her family would feel insulted if I didn't at least talk with her. I know for a fact that she's living with her parents now, so it seems like her life completely crapped the bed. I'd kind of like to get the gory details as maybe a form of schadenfreude, but it's all behind me now, and I think it would all just make me sad. I guess I'm a better man now that I'm more mature, more wealthy, and fitter than I was when I was with her, but I'm still the same guy that she didn't have chemistry or connection with back in the day. So I think whatever comes out of her mouth would be bullcrap. I think she's probably a dragon cosplaying as a princess and wants me to be her white knight. Screw that. My mom and sister are pushing hard for me to meet her, and my mom says that she's afraid if I don't at least hear Sarah out, that Sarah's mom will resent her and make her social life more complicated. But let me make it clear that I have no intention of getting back with Sarah. Sarah is very beautiful, but so are the women of Romania, Iceland, and elsewhere. And they have the added bonus of not breaking my heart. I'm interested in going just to hear about what happened to her after she dumped me and to smooth things over for my folks. What do you think, Reddit? Should I go? I kind of want to. Talk me down off the ledge. Would I be the a-hole if I ghosted my ex-wife? Update. Hi, I'm apparently known as the Hallmark Christmas movie guy. I'm currently writing this from Reykjavik, Iceland. I have some friends I met while doing some consulting work here. This time of year, the days are very short and the northern lights are visible. Unfortunately, it's supposed to be cloudy and rainy for the foreseeable future here, so I'm out of luck with the aurora borealis. We're doing a Christmas pub crawl, among other things. Reykjavik is very single-friendly during the holidays. After I posted, for the next couple of days, my mom and sister kept bugging me about it until I caved. I know. I made it clear to them that I had no intention of getting back together with Sarah and that I was pissed that they thought there was a chance I'd get back together with someone who stabbed their son and brother in the heart. Finally, I told Sarah I'd meet her at the playground at our old school. It's a small town, so there's only one school that's K-12. When we met, I told her up front that I'm just there as a favor to our parents and my sister. She acknowledged that, and we engaged in a little small talk. She told me that she had started following me on social media. I've since made it friends and family only, and she saw how I'd been all over the world and even commented on the girlfriend I had in Romania. I told Sarah her name was Monica, and we had a great time together. She then started in with the juicy stuff I wanted to hear. Unfortunately, it wasn't very juicy. Just regular, boring relationship crap. She started living with the guy, and it quickly became apparent that once she was with him, the relationship went from an exciting affair to a regular humdrum relationship. She said she knew the forbidden sparks were gone the first time she had to pick up and launder the guy's skid-marked underwear. Yep, she left me for a guy who was barely toilet trained. She said she was in denial that she couldn't have thrown me away for a guy who was no good, so she doubled down by marrying him. Sarah was always very stubborn. He was apparently a good salesman and earned a lot in commissions, but he was really bad with money. They had a lot of fights about money and household chores, and finally she caught him cheating with a coworker. Oh, the irony. She left him with a wrecked credit score. She was pregnant with his kid at the time, so she got an Absort. Honest. Please stop saying please honest. No one in our families know about. She's been living with her parents and working at the same feed store her dad works at. She said she wanted to reconnect with me due to the fact that we were childhood friends and had been each other's best friends for 17 years. And she missed me. She started on about how much therapy she'd been through and that she is a completely different person now. She wants me to know how much she cares about me and that that girl I was best friends with is still there and blah, blah, blah. I can't even write this manipulative shit. I guess I'm not a nice guy anymore. I didn't want to start any kind of beef with her family and mine, so I just told her that I had also changed since she dumped me. I told her that when I touch something and get burned, I don't touch it anymore. I told her it's great that she worked on herself, but some new guy will have to benefit from that. When I look at her, all I see is her crying, telling me she's leaving me, holding a proverbial knife with my blood all over it. In my mind, she's a person who says, "Honey, I love you, but I also love stabbing. No, thank you, ma'am." I told her that if we got together, the resentment would make me treat her like crap all the time, and she didn't want or deserve that. I told her good luck in her future endeavors, and I hope she keeps up with her changes, and that I had to leave to go to Iceland for Christmas. Yes, I was bragging. She was tearing up and trying not to let me see her cry, and I pretended not to notice. Dad was disappointed I caved to mom and sister. He made it like I failed the test of manhood. I told my mom and sister not to expect any wedding bells or grandchildren/nephews anytime soon. My brother called me a simp, and so I had to wrestle him. He got me in a headlock. The guy's getting too big, and I held back too much. I left for Iceland the next day, and I'm there until the new year. I'm headed to Budapest for a follow-up project. Sarah is not invited. I moved into my VF's house and I haven't been able to sleep well for 3 weeks because he doesn't let me. I had a breakdown last night and broke a lamp. I'm going to stay in a hotel tonight. AITA. I moved into my BF's house he owns 3 weeks ago and it's been really hard. We have been fighting a lot. Many of our fights are because he doesn't let me sleep. I work 9 to 5, so I have to wake up at 8ish. He works whenever he wants, so he doesn't have a set sleep schedule. I used to go to sleep 1:11:30 p.m. prior to living with him. So I compromised to 12:12:30 IEM, but there are nights he goes to bed 4 IE, 5 IE, 6 IE, 7 IEM. There is a master bedroom and a guest bedroom. I was sleeping in the master, and he would go in and out, disrupting me, so I have yelled at him. He tells me, "Give me 10 minutes and I'll be in bed." Hours go by, he is still not in bed, and making noises in the kitchen or living room. He told me, "You can go to sleep without me." There is a lot of noise when he comes into the master, and he says that's where all his things are there, so he needs to go in and out. I tried sleeping in the guest room. He does not have a lock, but when I do, so he comes into there and disrupts my sleep instead of just going in the master. I have only been getting 5 to 6.5 hours of sleep for weeks now. Very broken. Yesterday evening, I told him I have a doctor's appointment at 8 a.m. before work, so I have to be up at 6:30-ish. I got ready for bed at 10 p.m. in the guest room and was watching TV on my computer with a plan to go to sleep at 11 p.m. I put a note on the door saying, "I have to be up early, please be considerate." I fell asleep at 11:30-ish with my eye mask on, fan on for white noise, always use this, sleep podcast, and he came in 3 times while I was sleeping and woke me up. He was drunk, turned on the light, pulled up my eye mask. I begged him every time to let me go to sleep because I have to be awake early. Then he started making a lot of noise in the hallway saying he was having 8 strippers over, making sex noises in the bedroom. I told him I'm leaving. I just want to sleep. Why don't you let me sleep? I was on my hands and knees on the floor crying, and he said, I'm sorry. I was just playing. I'm a jerk." I told him I need to go get some sleep, and my plan was to just sleep in my car. It was now 1 a.m. I left, and he's calling me, telling me he is sorry and he's in bed. Can I come back and we can go to sleep? I come back, and he is not in bed. He is in the basement getting laundry. I said I want to go to sleep. I try to sleep again, and he then comes in and starts cuddling me, telling me he loves me and he's sorry. I ask him to come to my appointment with me tomorrow, and he agrees. I said I have to go to the bathroom. I go pee, and when I come out, he is in the bathroom. 10 minutes go by, and he's still in there. I start screaming at him to come. He says he's peeing. Then I go and open the door, and he closes it before I can get in. He tells me he's taking NyQuil. I just freaked out. I go into the bedroom and pull off everything on the dresser onto the floor. I then turn over the lamp nightstands, handed up breaking one. He pushes me onto the bed, and there is a necklace that he said he can't find. He is freaking out, and I'm scared, so I tell him I'll help him find it. We find it. It's past 2 a.m., and we go to sleep in the guest room. He is on my side, so I just go into the master and sleep there until my alarm goes off. I wake him up, and he starts getting ready, and he notices his front veneer is gone, was there last night. He accuses me of taking it. I said I didn't. I try to help him, but I have to go to my doctor's appointment, so I say, let's go, and I'll help you find it afterward. He says he wants to find it, so he stays. On the way there, he texts me, "You don't care about me. Get out and leave me alone. You are one of the most selfish individuals I met." I don't respond. Then he calls me saying he found it. I go to my app, get back home, and I have to work 9 to 5:30 p.m. today. I work from home. He is sleeping as I type this. I am going to get a hotel tonight and look into moving out this weekend. I feel horrible for throwing stuff on his dresser on the floor, but I can't take this constant lack of sleep. Am I the a-hole? Update 1. Update. Thank you to everyone for the responses and for opening my eyes to the reality of my situation. I feel as though I have been in a daze, doubting myself and questioning my own sanity. Absolutely do not recommend not sleeping. I logged off work early, saying I wasn't feeling well. I checked into a hotel not the closest one because I think he may look for my car there first. Going to sleep now. Second update context. This is a different relationship than my last posts. I started dating this guy in February 2024. He actually proposed to me at the end of May 2024 after a few months of dating with a stunning engagement ring. I said I wasn't sure because it was so soon, wore it for a day and gave it back. I said I wanted us to know each other better and live together before that step. I accepted a contract startup position in July with my job halfway across the country and was gone for weeks at a time. He asked me to move into his apartment before I accepted that position, but I told him I wanted to see it though. I would come back for 1 to 2 weeks at a time and we would stay together. He always stayed up later than me until 1 to 2 a.m., but he would put headphones in, turn off lights, be quiet/respectful when I was sleeping. It was only after I moved into his house mid-November that things escalated. He told me he wanted to put me on the deed of the house, however, I declined. There is a safe in the house where he keeps cash, probably drugs too, maybe a gun. He was quite dodgy about answering this. He asked me if I wanted the code. I said no, I didn't want to be accused if ever anything was missing. The red flags were there and my intuition was trying to warn me. Should have listened to it sooner. I slept for 11 hours. Yay! My parents live 5 hours away. I was planning to see them Christmas Eve. I called and told them everything. Staying with a friend tonight. My dad offered to pick me up tomorrow and I'll be there for a few weeks at least. I will be breaking up with my BF, but I want to be a few states away before I tell him. If he shows up at my parents' home, we're going to call the police. My dad and my brother said they'll come back with me later on to get the rest of my belongings. IDK if I even want to go back there to get them. I just know I can't do it right now. Thank you. I have 2 weeks to get away from my husband. Throwaway account as my husband and in-laws are follow my main. I, 29 female, have been married to my husband, 30, who I'll call Alex. Alex and I met in college during our freshman year. We started off as just friends and got married 7 months ago. I've gotten along with his family, but we aren't super close. But we're friendly enough. The problem is that Alex has begun to make me incredibly uncomfortable. Firstly, he's begun to ask me who I'm meeting with, where, what we plan on doing, how long, every single time I leave the house without him. At first, I just thought he was being protective and a good partner just in case something happened. But then he started checking my phone after the visits, vetting and researching each of my friends as well. He also has been pursuing me to link my bank account to his as he's in charge of the finances when he was perfectly fine with keeping them separate before. We fight about it almost every day. Finally, yesterday, when he was preparing to go on a work trip for 2 weeks in California, he demanded I wear a tracker so he could keep an eye on me while he's gone. I can't do this anymore. I feel like I'm suffocating, and his family, who I've spoken to about his worrying behavior, just said he's being careful and protective, as a good husband should. I need to gather my things together and find a way to be gone before he gets home without tipping him off. He's always threatened that if he ever found me cheating on him, he'd turn in divorce papers the same day. He keeps a filled-out copy in his desk. I'm going to submit those the day I leave, but there's so much to do. Begin finding a new place to live, seeing if my job has any transfers available, packing and moving in 2 weeks. His return flight May 11th, so I need to move quickly. I'm posting here because I don't have any close family, and I can't risk dragging my friends into this as we share the same friends. I just needed a place to vent and ask if anyone has any advice on the easiest and safest way to do this. Edit. Oh my God, you guys are amazing. I never even thought to not use his divorce papers. I'll check for cameras before I start any packing or prepping. I may also shred his divorce papers just in case and look into getting a lawyer for myself. I'm in a no-fault divorce state, that much I so remember, which will help. I'll update again when I know more. The tracker he wants me to use is a small clip to put on the belt or waistband. I'll wear it unless I'm going or doing something related to me leaving. No pets yet, thankfully. Update 1. So, I've gotten a lot of support and helpful advice along with questions I thought I should clarify before I proceed with the update. Some asked why I'd be hiding things from Alex regarding going out and who I'm meeting with. I don't, and I have nothing to hide. However, when he begins to then double-check everything I tell him with the other people there, right down to each person I talked to and what I said. Did I send any text messages? Did I order food? How much did I eat? That's when it started to feel like I was slowly being pushed into a corner. It didn't start that bad, but gradually grew worse over time. All of the Reddit subs my in-laws' families are part of are related gardening and DIY, so I highly doubt they'll see this. If so, by the time they do, I'll hopefully be gone. I talked to my job and explained things to my manager, and they promised to look into openings in other states to see if they could get me into one. They'll have an update on that in 3 days. I trust that my bank account is secured, considering he's tried to get into it before and failed. I found one camera in the kitchen, another in the living room, and one in our bedroom. As such, I've left them in place for now and done all other planning, either in the bathroom pretending I'm taking a bath. I'm honestly staying away from the domestic violence services as my sister-in-law is unfortunately higher up in those, considering she volunteers there, and I have a feeling if I did show up there, they would know in a heartbeat. I can't look for apartments until I get the update from my work. But either or, I'm still going to be leaving the state. The day before I do, I will be changing my number carrier and wiping my laptop and all of his electronics before I do. I've met with 2 lawyers so far and had them look over the paperwork. My husband had prepared and both said that it didn't have some clauses in it. That could have caused me some trouble down the line. What alarmed all of us closed the fact that several of those clauses dealt with future children, and not as a hypothetical. Like several hairs suggested, I have a feeling he fully intended on getting me pregnant to keep me trapped and tied to him. There are 3 other locations my job could send me to, and I have, as a precaution, begun looking into all 3 cities and housing in the areas, just in case one of those, this is the one they send me to. Even if they don't have an opening that they can push me into, then I will just have to quit, move, and figure things out on my own. I have enough money to live and survive for a few months until I can pick up another job. Unfortunately, all of our friends are mutuals and would likely be unaware of the consequences of saying or sharing anything I do or say with my husband. I don't have any surviving close family, and obviously my in-laws are not a good resource to rely on. I am on my own, unfortunately, other than the wonderful bonds I've begun to make here. I will update again if I get more information or something else happens. Otherwise, I'll update when my work gets back to me. I do plan on leaving before he returns, though, just to make sure that I'm not anywhere near here at that time. Update 2. Good news. My work has an opening I qualify for that will not only shift me across the country, but also comes with a salary increase as well. I've started telling my in-laws and friends that I'm planning a surprise outing for when my husband gets back for just the 2 of us. This way, people don't give me odd looks if they see me out and about. I've even gone as far as asking Mill to show me his favorite recipes. Meanwhile, I've found a moving company that, while small, is willing to work in a storm. The reason is, in 5 days, we're supposed to get hit with a large storm front. I plan to shut off the breaker and say we lost power if he asks, just as several people here suggested, and even send him a short clip of the storm. I will have all of my stuff moved that afternoon, and I will be flying out once the weather has cleared enough to do so. I have a lawyer who will push my divorce through, and I've filled out the necessary paperwork so that I don't have to be here for it. I'm not suing for assets or alimony, and I've shredded his divorce papers as well. I have set up a cheap payphone plan through Cricket until this is all said and done, at which point I will find a new carrier, number, and phone. This one is being wiped and left behind. My laptop is provided by my work, and the IT department inspected it thoroughly, and it was clean, thankfully. No other electronic aside from my laptop and new phone will be coming with me. If Alex needs to talk to me, he can do it through my lawyer. Not sure if anything else will happen. My fingers are crossed that he doesn't think anything amiss until after I leave, and I'm not turning the breaker back on when I do. He can when he gets home. My work is covering the plane ticket, so that at least is one expense I don't have to finagle in. Update 3. It's been a busy week, but I've gotten so much done. Firstly, I am now out of the house and am currently in a hotel while I look for an apartment. It's a big city, bustling with people no matter where you look. We had a pretty bad storm system hit back home that actually lasted 2 days. High winds, thunder, lightning, and even hail everywhere. I didn't take much from the house, my documents, clothes, and important sentimental items. I left all of the furniture and electronics behind. I cleaned the house top to bottom and took pictures on my phone so he couldn't claim I damaged anything when I left. My lawyer has already started divorce proceedings, and my husband will be served on the 8th. His plane is due to land early morning, and the sheriff will be there at the house waiting for him. He is very much about public appearances and reputation. My lawyer will be calling him as well to inform him that I am more than willing to air out everything to the public about his actions if it means securing my freedom from him. I will go to court as long as I must to get this pushed through. I haven't told our friends or his in-laws yet. I will do that while he is on the flight to prevent him from getting wind of it before he's handed the divorce papers. I will be calling around and explaining why we're getting divorced to try and prevent him from twisting this into somehow being my fault. I don't want him trying to claim I had an affair or something, so I want to get the truth out before he can twist this. I'm doing okay. I'm tired, but yet I feel almost jittery and off kilter. I keep looking over my shoulder and monitoring what I say, even when I don't really need to anymore. Hopefully that will fade soon. My work is covering the cost of the hotel, and I'm working on getting my other things in order. I also need to find a new GP as I want to get a full test just to make sure everything is okay. I don't know when my next update will be, probably when the divorce papers are filed or if we have to go to court to push them through. I will try to keep my head up, but it feels like I'm in a whirlwind or something with so many things to do and think about. I kind of thought it would be easier once I got out of the house, but while the fear is smaller, somehow the number of tasks only seems to have grown. Update 4. Sorry, I haven't updated for a while. Things got hectic and a bit chaotic, honestly. Firstly, I'm working on getting an apartment still and have applications in at 3 different places, and will hopefully hear back from them soon. I'm still going into work here at the new location, so I don't have to worry about burning through my emergency savings completely. I've gotten a lot of emails from Alex, his family, and our old friend group asking question after question. I have only sent one return email to Alex explaining that I don't believe we are truly compatible and it is best we separate now. That his treatment of me, when I'd done nothing to deserve as such, was just as much of a deal breaker as cheating was for him. I ended the email with the statement that I would not be contacting him further, and anything else he needed to pass on to me or vice versa would be done through my lawyer. For his family and friends, I just typed up one email outlining everything that had happened and why I left. I told them I wished them no ill will, but that such treatment of his wife and partner was not acceptable. That should Alex get remarried in the future, I wished they would help support both partners and not just Alex. Alex, from what my lawyer told me, was livid when he was served. The sheriff actually ended up booking him for assault on an officer and menacing due to the threats he was shouting. His father bailed him out in a few hours, but with the testimony of the sheriff, my lawyer believes I have a very good chance at getting a restraining order. Alex, upon returning to the house, apparently lost his temper again, breaking the dining table into pieces as well as the TV and putting several holes in the walls. At least, that's what one of the emails from one of our friends reported. As Alex called him to help him clean up the mess, my lawyer already has pictures of the house I took with timestamps as evidence. Nothing had been damaged by me. My friend reported that Alex tried to claim I'd been the one to trash the house, but the holes in the wall were at head height. Alex is 6'3" and I'm 5'4", so he knew that was false. Either way, taking the pictures definitely will help me. So again, thank you everyone here for the advice because I never would have thought of that on my own. My work won't share details of where I am, as I do work with some higher-end clientele who value security, and that information won't be gossiped about. And no, I'm not some stripper or escort. I deal with contracts, notary, and business management. As such, even if Alex tried to use my work to find me, he wouldn't succeed. Update on leaving. It's been a little bit, and I thought I'd answer some questions before giving my update. It may be a while after this until things change. Firstly, no, I didn't bring my car. The public transport here is good enough to use without needing one. I have secured an apartment, and the building has good security. You need a key card to enter, and there is a security guard at a desk right by the entrance to the building. As part of my contract, I gave them a photo of Alex and his family, so that even in the off chance they do find me, they won't be let in. The responses I got from the emails varied. His family said I was overreacting and that I owe Alex an apology for the problems this has caused him. The pending criminal charges puts him at risk of losing his job if he's convicted. Alex sent a long email apologizing and pleading for me to come home. He said he was worried for me, that he is willing to go to therapy if it will appease me. He wants us to remain together, and he didn't think leaving was an appropriate response to his genuine concern and worry for my health and safety. The friends gave somewhat lacking replies, saying that they didn't think Alex was ever going to hurt me and that I shouldn't be letting my imagination run away wild. As much as I want to say I was surprised by the lack of support, I'm honestly not. He intends to fight the divorce. I am letting my lawyer handle it, and I am also pursuing a protective order as well. Once I got approved for my apartment, I also froze my credit. I've changed my phone carrier and number, as well as making sure none of my documents list Alex as next of kin or POA. Some have asked why I was so paranoid about Alex and his possible future actions. The answer for that actually is somewhat simple: my grandmother. I loved that woman to bits. As a teen, she explained why my grandfather was never around. He was extremely abusive and manipulative, and her generation didn't allow divorce, really. She wouldn't have been able to buy a house or get a good enough job to support her and my mother on her own. As such, she endured it, shielded my mom as she could until my grandfather died. When I felt like I may have been overreacting, I remembered how she'd said she'd always wished she'd been able to see grandfather for what he was early on, when she may have been able to annul the marriage. I don't know when I'll update again, maybe when the divorce goes through or if something big happens, but until then, I'm just trying to keep my head above the water. Another update. It's been a month since my previous update, and I wanted to share some of what's been going on in the meantime. The divorce is proceeding, but even though I don't need him to agree, and he's not, it means I have to go through the courts to get it approved. As such, it could be upwards of 6 months to push it through, even though I'm filing without attempting to claim property, alimony, or compensation. I just want a clean break and separation. Alex has attempted to use our friends to reach out to me, as he doesn't want to use my lawyer for communication. He's saying it's disrespectful and cowardly to hide behind my lawyer and not meet him face to face. Alex wrote me a letter that he did pass off to my lawyer, but the contents were him justifying his actions and claiming that in today's time it is dangerous for women to be on their own, which is why he was so intent on trying to keep me safe from harm. He wanted me to understand that he was trying to protect me as best he could and was hurt that I would just lie to him and hide my actions from him related to my dissatisfaction with our marriage and my moving. I didn't reply because at no point did he apologize. All he did was turn everything around on me as I was being overly dramatic, emotional, and cowardly. There was a second letter with Alex's from my SIL. Her letter was honestly disturbing and completely justified my misgivings regarding approaching her in any kind of professional capacity. She spent 5 paragraphs detailing how a real abusive relationship looked like and that Alex was the furthest thing from abusive. The details she included were all related to financial abuse and physical abuse, nothing like what Alex had been doing. She stated that my attempt to smear her brother's name for attention and clout made me the abuser, not him. I haven't really been able to process that, admittedly. Part of me can't help but wonder if she's right. I mean, I blindsided him by leaving, as I did, and am refusing to speak with him at all. My old boss recommended that I look into getting into therapy after I moved, and I think I need to. I have had a hard time adjusting to being on my own. I keep censoring myself, and haven't even gone out to eat yet. I always end up worrying about what if someone sees me, what if I get in trouble for spending my money on something frivolous. My lawyer is continuing to fight for the divorce, and I shouldn't need to be physically present in court. Any meetings needed between me and the judge can be done via Zoom. I'm trying to avoid confrontation with Alex and his family for now as much as I can, and passed both letters to my lawyer in case he needs them. Our friends are mostly trying to avoid taking sides still, and I'm honestly approaching the point of just letting them go as well. I'm tired of fighting for them to understand at this point. I don't know if anything is going to happen, so my next update may not be until around mid-November, depending on how long it takes to push the divorce through. Work is going well, and it's helpful to have something familiar to anchor my day-to-day life when so much has changed and is changing even now. Divorce proceeding update. It's been a while since I last updated, as I needed to let the court step in, as Alex was not willing to grant my request for a divorce. We started with mediated session via Zoom, but after 4 sessions, it was decided that no compromise could be reached between us. The things Alex was pushing for were ones I'm not even willing to humor, let alone agree to. He wanted me to tell our friends and those I'd sent the information to about his actions that I'd made it up in order to gain sympathy. He also wanted me to pay him for defamation and suffering, especially the wages he lost because of sitting in jail for 2 days and missing work before getting bailed out. Lastly, he also wanted me to return and to, quote him, stop my foolish behavior and act like a proper wife and partner. No. So needless to say, our mediated sessions went absolutely nowhere. The judge isn't seeming to buy into Alex's act, thankfully, because he's certainly tried. It took me far too long to see Alex for who he was, and part of me feels like an idiot because I didn't see it at all. Yet, the judge seemed to clock him for exactly what he is within the first meeting. Maybe I just didn't want to see it. I don't know. Alex ended up arguing with the judge a lot, even being held in contempt 4 different times. I think it's honestly why this moved as quick as it did. It didn't help that Alex tried to pull in his family as character witnesses, but they were dismissed by the judge as the abuse wasn't seen or heard by them, and as such, they only knew part of Alex's character. In his closing statement after he approved the divorce, he went on to call Alex a narcissist and that if Alex loved himself so much to abuse the one he'd married, to let the divorce happen and marry Amir next. I didn't think a judge was allowed to say that at all, but my lawyer just shook his head and told me not to say anything, so we left. So here's the update I'm sure everyone's been hoping for and guessed. I'm officially divorced. The documents were processed 3 days ago, and I'm still in disbelief. I have no contact with Alex any longer, nor do I want any. I'm not going to give our friends my new contact information. I may not have replied to everyone, though I tried, but I did read all of your comments. I really did. Your repeated statements about how they weren't actually friends really helped me see that they weren't. So I decided that since I moved far from that place, I needed to start over. New home, new place, new friends. It's slow, and I've started therapy, though it took almost 3 months to get it due to the usual wait times. But I've been going 3 times a week ever since. It's helping, even with things I thought were done and dusted. Alex didn't take the divorce well. According to my lawyer, who's been keeping up with him to make sure he stays away from me, he did something at work, I don't know what, as obviously I have no way to gain that information, but whatever it was cost him his job. My lawyer also did something I didn't expect him to, but something I think everyone will like. He took the letter my ex-Sil sent me and forwarded it to the domestic violence organization she works for, along with a formal statement regarding Alex, his actions, and the decision of the judge. She's been let go as well, and given how tight those organizations are with one another, my lawyer said that the likelihood of her getting a position at another is slim to none. I actually laughed, though I was a bit teary, when he said that, and that Slim is on a leaky rowboat to China. I've been crying a lot lately, but my therapist says it's normal and shows I'm actually processing things instead of bottling them up and pushing them down. I'll try to update in a month or so if my emotions level out some to explain a few more of the details, but I wanted to get this out there and thank everyone for their continued support and encouragement. I appreciate each and every one of you, and really do. You gave me the hope that leaving him wasn't going to be this giant black mark I'd never heal from or move on from. Work is going well, and the sense of normality and routine is helping me avoid feeling like everything has been spiraling out of control. I'm working on me now. It's been a month since I finally was able to share the success of my divorce from Alex. My mood swings are still happening, but they don't last quite as long anymore, so I'm taking that as a good sign. My therapist recommended that I sign up for some kind of physical activity just to help work out and channel what she called the fight/flight instincts more. So I've joined a local self-defense club and I'm going twice a week. I felt really awkward in the beginning, but they've all been super nice and welcoming, so it's been easier. It has helped, I think. A lot of my jitteriness and anxiety has calmed, and I'm sleeping better as well. I've also joined a book club, though it's all online at the moment. They're discussing the possibility of meeting in person rather than over Skype at a local park. It's hard, honestly. I feel like a kid that just changed schools and sometimes feel like it's either sink or swim. My therapist pointed out that if I feel like I'm sinking, to stop, take a step back, and remind myself that I have all the control over my actions. If I don't like something, I don't have to do it. And for me personally, I get very overwhelmed even deciding to take a class. I can feel my emotions, but I also need to not let them control and dictate my actions. She also pointed out how I've developed a tendency to try and fix other people's bad moods. She told me that they're adults and it's not my responsibility to manage anyone else's emotions other than my own. It's been hard, but I'm getting there. I think in a year, as a celebration for my divorce, I may go visit my grandmother's grave. Just to talk, if nothing else, as silly as that may sound. I passed on your thanks to my lawyer, who smiled and said, a bit smugly, I might add, that he loves giving people who thought they were untouchable the karma they deserved. He went on to add that he enjoyed being karma's helping hand. My lawyer has kept abreast of what's been happening with Alex and his sister, both just to make sure they don't try anything. According to him, my ex-sister-in-law threw a fit when she was let go from the DV center, enough that she was barred from the premises. It seems that she shares some traits with her brother in regards to temper. She's now working at Lowe's, apparently, as while she was a volunteer at the DV center, she has to pay some fines for damages she caused during the incident that got her banned. As for Alex, he's been quiet, which worried me at first, but my lawyer told me he's keeping his head down. He's gotten another job with a construction crew, but with everything he has to pay, he cannot afford to lose his job. I was awarded damages for emotional distress and harm as he never touched me physically. I was able to prove my statements thanks to records of the text conversations between Alex and I regarding the tracker and not leaving the house without permission. As my financial situation is stable, I don't need alimony, so my lawyer advised not to try for it and focus on compensation for damages instead. Alex's family apparently hates me now, as they've reached out to my lawyer telling him to pass on the message that I've successfully ruined both Alex and his sister's lives over my lies. Honestly, at this point, I'm getting to the point of not caring anymore. I only have so much to give right now for emotional needs, and I want it from my own, not to expend on someone else, if that makes any kind of sense. So that's where I'm at right now. It's hard coming up to the holidays and being alone, but a few weeks ago I found a kitten in the alley next to my work. He's a tiny, raggedy little thing. He's black, long hair with 3 white paws, and he's also missing his tail. He's got the first vertebrae, but nothing else. According to the vet, Mom may have accidentally bitten it off at birth, which I didn't even know happened, but apparently it does. I'm calling him Bandit. So I'm not alone anymore, but now I have a kitten that thinks everything needs to be hunted, including my toes. I wear slippers constantly because those little claws of his are like freaking daggers, I swear. I'll update again if anyone wants me to, but yeah, that's where things are now.